Chapter 792. The next day. Zhen Dejuan connected to the array in the tower again. The image of Jun Changshao and his disciple warming up in the second world was displayed by the mirror projection array in the city. Let's go. After warming up, he gave the order and everyone walked up the stairs in front of him. Buzz. As usual, after entering the new world, Shangguan Xinyao set up the projection array again and contacted the outside world to send the latest images. Which ancient martial emperor will be in this third world? All the martial artists in the continent were looking forward to it. Buzz. The scene changed and gradually turned into a battlefield under the dusk. The ground was red as if it was stained with blood. There were many weapons and armors scattered around and a murderous aura filled the air. Jun Changshao and his disciples could vaguely hear the war drums and horns echoing in their ears. Judging from the shape of these weapons and equipment, they're obviously from the ancient era. Could it be a battlefield from the War of Emperors? All the martial artists were discussing. Suddenly, a loud voice was heard. I'm Martial Emperor Ling Ju. I'm here to create a killing zone. If the juniors pass, you'll get a chance to refine your spiritual energy. Those who are fated will even get a spiritual pulse physique. Spiritual pulse physique. City Lord Han was shocked. This physique was one of the most powerful physiques in the ancient era. It could quickly absorb and refine heaven and earth attributes and raise one's cultivation level dozens of times faster than others. Good stuff. Yi Xingqian's eyes lit up. The great desolation fleshly body and the tempest fleshly body were nothing to him. However, the spirit meridian fleshly body caught his eye. With this fleshly body, his cultivation speed would be the same as consuming high-effect qi condensation pills and absorbing natural spirit stones. Most importantly, as long as he absorbed the attributes into his dantian, the spiritual energy he condensed would be the purest. The Great Desolation physique and Raging Wind physique were only used to increase his defense and speed. The Spiritual Pulse physique was used to increase his cultivation level and spiritual energy strength rapidly. Yi Xingqian was eager to return to his peak and become stronger so that he could seek revenge on that woman. Naturally, he wanted to get it. Jun Changshao did not care about the physique. Instead, he was thinking, I'll get a chance to refine my spiritual energy after I pass. Isn't this very similar to the third floor of the training tower? The system said, it seems that every world in the 10-directional life-ending tower corresponds to the level of the Tower of Experience, but Jun Changshao was puzzled. The Tower of Trials only has a total of 9 levels, but there are 10 worlds here. Ka ka ka. Ka 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 ka. Suddenly, on the twilight battlefield, the equipment fragments that were originally scattered all over the place flew up on their own and assembled into complete sets of armor. What was even stranger was, the insides of these armors were empty, but there seemed to be an invisible body supporting them. If an ordinary person were to be in it, their first reaction would be to think that they had seen a ghost. However, Jun Changshao and his disciples could tell that there must be some kind of power controlling the armor. This is the 3,000 armors that I've condensed. You'll only be qualified to enter the fourth heaven if you can hold on for 2 hours, Martial Emperor Ling Ju's voice echoed. Buzz. Buzz. As soon as he finished speaking, 2 red lights flashed in the helmet of the 3,000-man armor, like the eyes of a ferocious beast. Whoosh. 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 Broken swords, sabers, and other weapons flew over and were grasped by the gauntlet. Ka 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 ka. The 3,000-man armor charged over with weapons. Vaguely, the sound of drums and horns in their ears became louder, as if 2 opposing armies were about to launch a decisive battle. Kill. Jun Changshao said coldly. Swoosh. Swoosh. Li Qingyang and the others unleashed their cultivation base, either wielding weapons or fighting barehanded. As there was no second heaven and earth barrier to suppress them, their spiritual energy was not absorbed. Boom. 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 Xiao Ziji was the first to rush over. His thick fists were like two huge hammers, sending two armors flying. He said in shock, "Patriarch, my spiritual energy is depleting very quickly." "Me too." Su Xiaoma felt that his spiritual energy was depleting several times faster than usual when he tried to move to the side with his body movement technique. Jun Changshao rushed to an armor, gathered his spiritual energy, and punched it. He immediately realized it and said to the group telepathically, "This place is similar to the third floor of the training tower. You must control your spiritual energy consumption when you fight. Don't act recklessly, or you'll end up exhausted." "Yes." After receiving the order, the disciples immediately became cautious and did not dare to burst out too recklessly. At this time, the effect of self-slash was revealed. The higher the level of this skill, the more powerful it would be, and the lower the consumption would be. Even in the killing world, where the consumption was several times higher, it would not be affected too much. Boom! Yixingchen sent the armor close to him flying. His expression immediately became interesting. He did not use any martial arts and only relied on the purest physical strength. As a result, 1% of the spiritual energy in his body was consumed. In other words, Night Emperor would be exhausted even if he used the simplest attack 100 times. Damn it! Yixingchen's eyes were filled with anger. Perhaps because he thought that he was being treated specially again, he did not control his emotions and directly punched the armor that was coming at him. The spiritual energy in his body was consumed rapidly, and 10% of it was gone. Self-slash. Self-slash. In the killing world, Li Qingyang and Xiao Ziji slashed out streaks of light and bombarded the armor crazily while minimizing the consumption. Shangguan Xinyao was protected by her senior brothers and comprehended the array in peace. Boom! Boom! Explosions rang out, and the murderous aura on the battlefield became even more intense. Since they could not unleash their spiritual energy without restraint, Li Qingyang and the others did not have enough lethality. They could only push back the armor but could not inflict heavy damage. Sword momentum, graceful. At this moment, Zhou Hong unsheathed his sword. An unparalleled sword aura tore out and instantly swept through dozens of armor, cutting them in half. Awesome! Li Qingyang and Xiao Ziji exclaimed. Whoosh! 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 Zhou Hong continued to perform sword moves. Countless sword auras burst out and cut the heavy armor, causing them to fall to the ground one by one. Swordsmen rarely used spiritual energy. Everything depended on their understanding of swordsmanship. Therefore, their continuous attacks consumed much less spiritual energy than Li Qingyang and the others. Jun Changxiao's attack was even simpler. He rushed into the armor and started to attack. Bang! 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 In an instant, dozens of armors were shattered. With dual cores, he had more spiritual energy than others, so he did not mind using a little more. The rules of the third world were to last for 2 hours, but in just 1 hour, the 3,000 armors were all disintegrated. Hum! The stairs leading to the fourth world appeared. Plop! Yixingchen was the first to collapse on the ground. In the past hour, he did not attack many times, but because of the special treatment, his consumption was several times higher than others. His spiritual energy was already exhausted. Huff! Huff! Li Qingyang and Xiao Ziji also sat down and began to use their mental cultivation techniques to absorb the internal attributes and replenish their spiritual energy. Jun Changshao also consumed more than half of his spiritual energy and sat down obediently. Patriarch! Shangguan Xinyao said happily, "I found the pattern again." Elder Zhen said, "Patriarch, according to my calculations, if we can crack the pattern that Xinyao found, we can completely control the entire array system inside the life-ending tower." "That's awesome!" Jun Changshao said happily. The forbidden land that had existed for thousands of years must have been able to function because of the array. If they could completely control it, not only would they be able to break through the rest of the worlds easily, they would also be able to obtain all the legacies inside. However, Zhen Dejuan said, I just have an idea. As for whether I can crack it or not, it's hard to say. If it were him alone, he would definitely say that it was hopeless. However, with Shengguan Xinyao around, they might be able to find the most incredible solution from some details that he could not think of. Chapter 793. The sect of all times has passed the third heaven and earth. If they pass the fourth heaven and earth, they will set a new record. While Jun Changshao was leading his disciples to adjust their breathing, all the martial artists in the various provinces were discussing. Since the end of the Battle of the Emperors, the highest record for a martial artist was the third heaven and earth. Judging from the first 3 levels, it doesn't seem like they pose any real threat to the sect of all times. It should be easy to break the record. The difficulty of the 10-directional suicide tower increases with each new heaven and earth. Moreover, Yixingchen is dragging them down. They might be wiped out at any time. That guy might be a burden, but it shouldn't be that serious, right? In the live broadcast, Yixingchen had been labeled as a lying win and a burden by all the martial artists. It was very helpless. It was also very tragic. In fact, Yixingchen had worked very hard. Although he didn't help in the second and third heaven, he didn't drag them down and was persevering. If he hadn't been given special treatment, this live broadcast of the 10-directional suicide tower would have been the best stage for him to show off. Crack. After his spiritual energy recovered, Yixingchen clenched his fists. Anger was burning in his heart. His fellow disciples were all easily passing the levels, but he was the only one who was in such a sorry state. He couldn't accept it. Junior brother Yi. Li Qingyang comforted him. Don't be discouraged, don't be discouraged. If there's danger, we'll face it together. Yixingchen, who had a stronger self-esteem than anyone else, was even angrier. However, he could only sigh and say, I won't give up. His attitude towards the sect and his fellow sect members had undergone a fundamental change after that night of dancing in front of the bonfire. However, with his proud personality, he had never faced them head-on and never acknowledged them. Shengguan Xinyao was still spying on the array and creating complicated images in her mind. All kinds of questions arose in her mind, and she asked Elder Zhen for answers. One of them was extremely skilled in array formations, while the other was very crafty when it came to considering problems. They could be considered a golden pair. However, even if he had discovered the pattern, it would still take a lot of effort to crack it. It was definitely not something that could be solved with just a few words. Otherwise, how could he be worthy of the dead array emperor? Jun Changshao was not in a hurry and ordered his disciples to rest where they were. He wasn't in a hurry, but the martial artists of the continent were. This fellow had rested inside for 3 days. Other than when the formation was closed at night and everyone dispersed, they basically did nothing the whole day. They all stared at the light screen and eagerly hoped that the other party would quickly uncover the mystery of the fourth heaven. Why aren't you attacking yet? Is the sect of all times planning to live in a third world? If I had known, I would have been busy with my own affairs instead of staring at the light screen like a fool. All the cultivators were getting impatient and grumbling. Challengers can only recuperate for 3 days after passing through a certain realm. Otherwise, they will be expelled. A heavy voice rang out in the tower and was transmitted to the sky above the falling star continent through the light screen. Jun Changshao, who had originally planned to rest here for 10 days to half a month, could only stand up and say, let's go to the fourth world. Buzz! A brand new scene appeared after Shengguan Xinyao set up the formation in the fourth world. It was a platform paved with stone slabs, and it seemed to be endless as far as the eye could see. I am the sky-breaking sword Arch, and I am here to create the bone-refining realm. If the juniors pass, they can obtain a chance to temper their bones and flesh. Those who are fated can even obtain the sword transformation physique. Sword Arch! Everyone exclaimed. An emperor-level martial artist who proved his Tao with the sword was very rare even in the ancient times when spirit qi was abundant. Zhou Hong, who had always been calm, heard the words sky-breaking sword arch, and his eyes lit up. The sword arch. It was definitely the level that he and all other sword cultivators yearned for. Now that he could hear the voice of an ancient sword arch in the tower, it was undoubtedly very encouraging. Bone refining realm? Jun Changshao murmured, it really corresponds to the 4th level of the training tower. At this moment, if he still couldn't see the connection between the 10-directional destiny tower and the training tower, his brain must have been kicked by a donkey. Boom, boom, boom. Suddenly, a rumbling sound came from above, and a heavy stone slab that stretched across the entire space pressed down. Zueji, hold on. Yes. Xiao Ziji staggered, and the earth element instantly surrounded his body. He raised his hands and caught the stone slab that was like a mountain. Crack. Crack. At the moment of contact, a strange force surged into his body, and the sound of bones breaking could be heard, causing him to grit his teeth in pain. Boom, boom. The stone slab slowly fell. Swoosh. Swoosh. Li Qingyang, Su Xiaoma, and the others hurriedly lifted their palms. However, as long as they came into contact with the stone slab, a special force would enter their bodies and destroy their bones crazily. However, under everyone's concerted efforts, the stone slab's falling speed slowed down until it was controlled to a safe distance. Xinyao. Jun Changshao said, continue to analyze the array. Okay. Shangguan Xinyao didn't get distracted and focused all her attention on comprehending the array. As a result, the scene showed that Li Qingyang and the others had explosive sounds coming from their bodies, and they were struggling to withstand the heavy stone slab, while she was safe and sound and closed her eyes to think. Hoo-hoo, the gravity of the stone slab continued to increase, and the aura that was wreaking havoc on the bones in their bodies became more and more violent. Everyone held on for a while, and their faces gradually became ferocious, and the stone slab sank by about half a foot. Pa! Pa! Jun Changshao and Jiang Ye no longer watched from the sidelines. They raised their palms to support the stone slab, and when the aura that was destroying the bones spread, their expressions suddenly became interesting. Yi Xingqian didn't make a move. When he saw the painful expressions of the patriarch and his fellow disciples, he suddenly felt conflicted. If he stretched out his hand to support it, the destruction he would suffer would definitely be several times more than theirs. Boom! Suddenly, the stone slab sank by a lot, and it was only half an inch away from Shangguan Xinyao's head. Yi Xingqian knew that this woman was concentrating on studying the array. If she touched the stone slab, her mind would definitely be disturbed. Thus, his eyes were filled with determination as he raised his hand to support the stone slab. Come on. I, Yi Xingqian, will bear all the suffering. Crack. Hoo-hoo. Ah ah, screams echoed in the 4th world. When the martial artists outside heard it from the light screen, they were so shocked that their hair stood on end. Crackle crackle. Crackle crackle. Yi Xingqian lifted the stone slab with both hands, and the sound of bones cracking could be heard. It was as if his entire body was wrapped in firecrackers and then lit by someone. Li Qingyang and Xiao Ziji, who were beside him, heard the sound and immediately felt a chill down their spines. Although Yi Xingqian was suffering several times more bone honing than the others, with his support, the stone slab that was originally slowly falling was stabilized. It didn't affect Shangguan Xinyao, who was studying the array. An hour later. Patriarch, Elder Zhen. Shangguan Xinyao said happily, I found the pattern. Maybe I can control the array. Do you want to try? Try. Jun Changshao said without hesitation, boldly try. Phew, Shangguan Xinyao took a deep breath and then began to erase the line of existence with her spiritual thoughts, reconnecting it with the other arrays. After the modification, it didn't cause an explosion. However, The aura erupting from the stone slab suddenly became violent. Crackle crackle. Crackle crackle crackle. Jun Changshao, Li Qingyang, and the others' palms came into contact with the stone slab. The intensity and frequency of the bone explosions in their bodies became stronger, and their faces became more twisted and ferocious. No, no. Shangguan Xinyao said, it seems to be wrong. Jun Changshao almost fainted. They didn't find the pattern and instead increased the difficulty of the test. This was absolutely tragic. Do you want to try again? Quick. Quick. Jun Changshao said with a ferocious expression. As the difficulty increased, they couldn't hold on any longer, and the stone slab sank a little. Shangguan Xinyao had the foresight to squat down and continue to modify the lines and arrays with her spiritual thoughts. Boom! The array still didn't explode, but the difficulty increased again. The stone slab sank a little more. Jun Changshao and the others no longer supported it with their hands. Instead, they tilted their heads and used their shoulders to support it. The expressions on their faces were more interesting than the last. I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Shangguan Xinyao said in a panic, I made a mistake again. Can I change it back again? If I change it back again, it might cause the array to explode. Continue. Boldly try. Boldly innovate. Quickly. Quickly. Chapter 794. Patriarch. Shangguan Xinyao lay on the ground and said, do you want to keep trying? Why was she lying on the ground? Because she tried a few more times boldly, but failed again and again. The stone slab would sink a lot every time. Jun Changshao and the others were already squatting on the ground, their heads tilted to the side, using their shoulders to bear the stone slab. It wouldn't have mattered if there was only external pressure, but the destructive aura was still running rampant in their bodies, crackling and tormenting them. It felt like they were in hell. The most miserable was Yi Xingqian. At this moment, although he was still bearing with his shoulders, the torment from several levels had already made him roll his eyes. Fortunately, the stone slab was pressed down and blocked the impression matrix. Otherwise, the miserable and embarrassing scene would have been witnessed by all the warriors of the continent. At that time, Night Emperor, with his strong self-esteem, would not have the face to go out in the future. It's like a mountain of stone is about to touch the ground. I'm afraid the Sect of all times won't be able to hold on. If they are eliminated in the fourth world, it will only be equal to tying the record, not breaking it. Now is not the time to be concerned about the record. Once Jun Patriarch and his disciples fail, they will be wiped out in the tower. Everyone was discussing. This is troublesome. Mu Changheng frowned. Although the image on the light screen was blocked by the stone slab, and the situation of Jun Changshao and the others could not be seen clearly, judging from the sinking rhythm, as long as they could not bear it, they would be completely crushed into meat paste. Sigh. City Lord Han shook his head and said, this is the result of being reckless. Many warriors felt that it was a pity. After all, the Sect of all times was in the growth period and had extraordinary potential. If the Patriarch and his outstanding disciples died here, it would be a disastrous blow. Far away in the heavenly mandate royal city, Yi Tianxing was already paralyzed in his chair, his hands trembling violently, and his breathing became rapid. The Sect of all times had won the Dragon Tiger battle and had not had time to show off to others. If Jun Changshao died in the tower, it would be unacceptable. Elder Zhou and Elder Zhen did not feed the dojo master the medicine. The two of them fixed their gazes on the screen and cheered for the Sect of all times in their hearts. At present, just from the images displayed on the light screen, all the martial artists of the continent believed that this sect that was in the limelight was about to face a calamity. However, everyone was filled with sorrow. The disciples of the Sect of all times who had not entered the tower looked indifferent. Father, Mu Honglian said, Patriarch and my senior brothers will be fine. Mu Changheng was stunned. He looked at his daughter, then at the other disciples beside her, and saw the confidence in their eyes. Anyone could question the sect of all times, but the disciples of this sect would never question themselves or Jun Changshao. Boom! The voice came from the light screen again, and the stabilized stone slab sank again. It's hopeless. At this rate, we'll be in close contact with the ground after 2 more dips. Everyone shook their heads. They had hoped to reveal the secrets of the 10-directional life-ending tower step by step under Jun Changxiao's live broadcast, but in the end, they only saw the 4th heaven and earth, not even half of it. In the bone-refining world, Jun Changxiao, Jiangya, and the others were lying on the ground, but their elbows were on the ground and their palms were still supporting the stone slab. Even if they were enduring the repeated process of their flesh and bones shattering, recovering, and shattering again, they were still holding on. It had nothing to do with dignity, it was about their lives. Girl. Zhen Dejuan hurriedly said, can you still change it? Shangguan Xinyao tried to turn her head and saw the ferocious faces of the patriarch and her fellow disciples. She cried in her heart with extreme self-blame. Elder Zhen. I don't dare to do anything, change it. Jun Changshao transmitted his voice. The situation had reached the most critical moment, and he could only continue to bet on his disciple, hoping for a miracle. Shangguan Xinyao gritted her teeth and continued to analyze the array pattern that looked like the sand of the Ganges River. Finally, she chose a route and quickly changed it. Ga. The line and the array pattern were reconnected, and the gradually sinking stone slab suddenly stopped. The aura that was wreaking havoc in the body suddenly disappeared. Shangguan Xinyao, who had already prepared to live and die with the patriarch, suddenly opened her eyes and said with wild joy, Patriarch, your disciple has controlled the 4th heaven and earth. Phew! Jun Changshao heard this and felt relieved. Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the others' complexions gradually recovered. Then, they first let go of one hand and made sure that the stone slab was no longer sinking. Then, they lay on the ground with the word spread and breathed heavily. Yi Xingchen not only rolled his eyes, but also foamed at the mouth. He had been trying hard to support the stone slab, so he had been suffering more than his fellow disciples. It was already very impressive that he had not fainted. This time, Night Emperor did not win by lying down. If he had not contributed a part of his strength, the stone slab would have been merged with the ground. Junior brother Yi, Li Qingyang reached out and put his hand on Yi Xingchen's shoulder. He smiled with difficulty and said, Are you okay? Yi Xingchen no longer had the strength to speak. Why aren't they moving? Could it be that the sect of all time's disciples have withstood it? The various martial artists did not see the stone slab sinking again. They looked at each other, their eyes filled with confusion and confusion. Boom! 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 At this moment, the heavy stone slab suddenly rose, and a staircase that led to the next heaven and earth gradually appeared in the distance. Jun Changshao and his disciples were lying on the ground. Although they looked a little weak, their faces were full of smiles. We passed. The sect of all times has passed the 4th heaven and earth. In an instant, the entire Starfall continent was in an uproar. Everyone was discussing and discussing. Father. Mu Changhong said proudly, our sect of all times has broken the record that has been sealed for thousands of years. Amazing, amazing. Mu Changhong said. To pass the test of the 4th heaven and earth under the adversity of being crushed into meat paste, this made him and even City Lord Han admire them very much. In fact, Jun Changshao and his disciples were able to pass because Shangguan Xinyao controlled the array of the 4th heaven and earth and closed the test in advance. This was definitely cheating. Outsiders did not know that the sect of all times used a control array to pass. Therefore, when the staircase appeared, they believed that they had broken the record and successfully passed the 4th heaven and earth. Ha ha ha. Ha 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 ha. In the certification hall, Yi Tianxing laughed loudly. He laughed so hard that he almost couldn't breathe. Quick, quick, quick. Elder Zhou urged, give the medicine. Swish. Swish. After a short rest, Jun Changshao, Jiang Ye, and the others stood up one after another. It was undeniable that the flesh and bone torture just now was very terrifying. However, after tempering on the 4th floor of the training tower, the damage caused could be recovered very quickly. However, everyone stood up. Only Yixingchen was still lying on the ground, his face still weak. The test he endured was already several times more difficult than others. Shangguan Xinyao had tried and failed again and again, increasing the difficulty again and again. He must have been tortured very badly. If I were to go in, with such a strong patriarch and fellow disciples, I would definitely win in all kinds of ways. Yixingchen's performance in the Dragon-Tiger battle for hegemony was very strong. Why is he so weak in the 10 Directions Suicide Tower? Could it be that his private life is messy and he doesn't deliberately control himself, causing his body to collapse? It's really possible. Sigh, such a good seedling, indulging in luxury every day. It's really a waste of God's gift. If Night Emperor heard them talking about him like this, he would definitely chase them to the East Sea with a knife. Let's rest here for more than 2 days first. Since the rule was 3 days, Jun Changshao would definitely go to the 5th heaven and earth. Patriarch. Shangguan Xinyao said, disciple has found the pattern and can try to control the formation of the 5th heaven and earth. Boldly try. Jun Changshao encouraged. 2 days later. After Shangguan Xinyao and Zhen Dejuan's cooperation, they finally gained initial control of the formation of the 5th heaven and earth. She said, Patriarch, the formation of the 5th heaven and earth is more complicated. Disciple can only remove the age and soul restrictions. Remove them. N. Shangguan Xinyao hurriedly changed it. Knowing that the age and soul restrictions of the 5th heaven and earth had been removed, Yixingchen stood up and walked towards the stairs with a glowing face. Before he went up, he turned to look at the projection of the formation. Although he didn't say anything, his cold eyes seemed to be telling the whole continent that next. Chapter 795. After much effort, Shangguan Xinyao finally found the pattern of the life-ending tower's formation. Although the results were minimal, and only the age and soul restrictions were removed, it was undoubtedly a small step for her and a big step for the sect of all times. Let's go. Jun Changshao said, let's go up. Under the gaze of the entire continent, everyone ascended to the 5th heaven. When the formation was set up again, a new version and a new image appeared on the screen. It was a dark area with light lingering around it. It looked like a terrifying hell. Before everyone could see it clearly, Jun Changshao stood in front of the camera and blocked the image. He said, everyone, this is the 5th heaven. Next, the sect of all times will continue to challenge and set a new record. Every time this guy ascended to a new heaven, he would find a chance to show off in front of the camera. He was really asking for a beating. Of course. Jun Changshao leaned to the left and pointed at Yixingchen, who was standing proudly. He said, this heaven and earth will be shown to the world by the sect of all times disciple, Yixingchen, how to easily clear it. Xingchen. Come and say hello to the audience in front of the TV. Yixingchen kept his back to the camera. He thought to himself, isn't he embarrassed? Whoosh. Li Fei appeared out of the camera, tilted his head and smiled. Hello everyone, my name is Li Fei. I'm a male, 20 years old, unmarried. My looks are decent, my character is excellent, and I don't have any bad habits. I'm the daughter of a noble family, if you are interested, please. Before he could finish, he was pushed out of the camera by a big hand. Jun Changshao straightened his collar and said, all right, let's not waste any more time. Next, please look forward to the large-scale reality show that will be broadcast exclusively by the sect of all times. Our slogan is yeah. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. All the martial artists' mouths twitched. Since the beginning of the Battle of Dragons and Tigers, they felt that the patriarch of the sect of all times might be sick. Now, they were sure that this guy was not only sick, but he was also beyond cure. Xinyao, move the camera up. Okay. Phew, the projection array slowly rose and then looked down at the fifth heaven and earth, capturing all the disciples of the sect of all times. Of course. Yi Xingqian stood in the center of the camera. According to Jun Changxiao's judgment, the test of the fifth heaven was probably related to the soul. Now that there were no restrictions, he could easily face it. The fifth level of the training pagoda was Yi Xingqian's home ground. Although the record was taken by He Wudi, the time he lasted inside was much longer than the other disciples. If the juniors pass, they will be able to obtain a chance to temper their souls. Those who are fated will even be able to obtain the inheritance of a Yuan spirit. A heavy voice sounded. Primordial spirit. Mu Changhong's eyes flashed with astonishment. Father, Mu Honglian asked, what is the primordial spirit? Mu Changhong explained, the so-called primordial spirit refers to the soul. Martial artists with this physique can use their primordial spirit to spy on everything around them. Isn't it the same as spiritual thoughts? Mu Honglian asked. Mu Changhong said, although the effect is similar, the range of spiritual thoughts is determined by the martial artist's realm and cultivation. The primordial spirit is not limited to this. It can spy further and wider. Oh. Mu Honglian understood. Mu Changhong continued, according to ancient records, martial artists with this physique can see tens of thousands of miles in a breath and can accurately find a small leaf with a mark. So powerful? Mu Honglian was surprised. With her current martial king cultivation, she could use her spiritual thoughts to cover dozens of miles. However, it was like looking for a needle in a haystack to accurately find something just by scanning it. Of course. The function of the primordial spirit was not only to spy on the surroundings. If one comprehended it to the extreme, they could spy on deeper things in heaven and earth. Yi Xingqian was expressionless when he heard Martial Emperor Lingyin's words. He wanted to take revenge and obtain the spiritual pulse physique that could help him break through quickly. He was not interested in other physiques. Jun Changxiao was more ambitious. If he did not consider his disciple, he would be happy to have all of them. After all, it was never a burden to have more skills. This heaven and earth has the power of the primordial spirit. Martial artists who enter will have to endure it. Only by enduring it for 2 hours will they be qualified to enter the sixth heaven. Whoosh! Whoosh! As soon as he finished speaking, a majestic aura spread out. It instantly invaded everyone's consciousness and brought about unbearable pain to their souls. Ah! Jun Changxiao held his head and screamed in pain. His face became ferocious. As expected, the test of the fifth heaven and earth was related to the fifth floor of the training pagoda. Although they did not know who was learning from whom, one thing was certain. The soul test here was more intense and powerful. Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the others often went to the fifth floor to train. However, when faced with the soul torture here, they immediately held their heads and screamed like the patriarch. A test from the soul. City Lord Han deduced from the expressions on their faces. This kind of pain must be worse than death, right? As expected, the higher we go, the more difficult the test is. I wonder if the sect of all times can withstand it. No one knew if Jun Changxiao and the others could withstand it. However, one thing was certain. Yi Xingqian was going to be a burden again. Therefore, all the martial artists in the continent looked at the main camera. In the end, they saw that guy standing proudly with his arms crossed. He did not even frown. It was as if nothing had happened. This. Everyone was dumbfounded. In the previous 4 heavens and earth, that guy looked like he was going to die. Why was he so calm in the 5th heaven and earth? Trash. At this moment, Yi Xingqian said calmly. His eyes were filled with arrogance and pride. Strange, this is too strange. Could it be that there was a problem with the fifth heaven and everyone else endured it except for him? Many people guessed. What they did not know was that Yi Xingqian had indeed endured the soul corrosion. However, after all these years of cultivation, the strength of his soul had long surpassed his realm. Naturally, he did not fear any test. After knowing that the age and soul restriction had been removed, it was no wonder that Night Emperor was the first to ascend. He now had absolute confidence that he could withstand all the tests. The grievances he had suffered in the previous 4 heavens and the dignity he had lost. This emperor will take back everything he lost in the 5th and later heavens. At this moment, Yi Xingqian stood proudly in the main camera's position. His body emitted a threatening aura. Those little fangirls who were originally disappointed in him regained the feeling of, my idol is super awesome. Xingqian, Xingqian. Stars and clouds scatter, sun and moon join the stars. Xingqian, Xingqian. Stars and clouds scatter, sun and moon join the stars. After seeing their idol being awesome for once, many little fans who had spontaneously gathered together finally shouted the slogan that they had been waiting for a long time. Jun Changshao, Li Qingyang, and the others were still holding their heads and screaming. It was a stark contrast to Yi Xingqian's calm expression. Especially Su Xiaomo. Not only did his eyes roll back, but he also began to foam at the mouth. In the end, he simply collapsed to the ground and convulsed. He transmitted his voice, Patriarch, my acting is not bad, right? It's a little exaggerated, Jun Changshao said. Patriarch, how am I? Xiao Ziji transmitted his voice. It's still acceptable. It turned out that when the soul corrosion attacked, Jun Changshao had ordered his disciples to enter acting mode. They were to set the mood for Yi Xingqian and act as supporting characters for him. Chapter 796. In the era of Jun Changxiao's previous life, popularity was king. Some young actors who had just debuted did not have any works. As long as they had a good appearance, they would be able to attract many fans. Since the sect of all times wanted to develop for a long time, they naturally needed to create a celebrity film. As long as people mentioned it, they would naturally think of the sect. To put it bluntly, Jun Changshao wanted to create a star. Create a popular young actor who would represent the sect of all times. The more honest and inarticulate Li Qingyang and Xiao Ziji would definitely not work. The most suitable one was the unsmiling and incomparably cold Yi Xingqian. In fact, from the beginning, Jun Changshao had planned to let Night Emperor show off in front of the camera. But because of the restrictions, he was suppressed in the first 4 stages. Not only did he not attract many fans, he almost lost fans and unfollowed. Fortunately, Shangguan Xinyao's tireless efforts removed all kinds of restrictions, allowing him to show off his true colors in the 5th stage. Especially with Jun Changshao and his fellow sect members as a foil, many naive and unaffected girls were immediately deeply attracted to this man who shone like a star. At that moment, in the projection array, Night Emperor debuted in the center position. His fan club called itself Xing Fan, and its slogan was Stars fly and clouds scatter, the sun and the moon represent the stars. Of course, Yi Xingqian was not just a popular young actor. He was also a strong person. No one could doubt that he persevered in the 5th heaven with a fever of 70 degrees and worked hard to show off. Do you haters know how hard he worked to take revenge for his blood feud? What right do you have to doubt and slander him? 2 hours later, the soul suppression in the 5th heaven dissipated. Jun Changshao and his disciples lay on the ground, breathing rapidly. Their expressions were still pained. Their acting was so realistic that they almost believed it. Patriarch. Shangguan Xinyao transmitted her voice. I have already grasped the basics of the 6th heaven and earth array. Currently, she could only communicate with each layer of the array inside. But she could not completely control it, let alone change the rules or repair the reward mechanism. Rest for a day. Jun Changshao said, let's try the sixth world. In order to complete the act, she couldn't just yell out numbers and recite her lines. She had to show the weakness that came with going through a great deal of torture. Boring, Lu Qianqian said. Everyone was acting, and she was the only one who stood in place. Although he had tried many times to enter the performance state, all he could do was frown. It was very difficult for this kind of cold woman who only had one expression from beginning to end to act, so she was only suitable to stand at the side as a vase. One day later, Jun Changshao and his disciples recovered and then headed to the sixth heaven and earth. Without a doubt, Yi Xingchen walked up first. As long as there was no soul restriction, the rest of the world was just a place for him to show off. Patriarch. On the way, Li Qingyang asked, what's on the sixth floor? This, Jun Changshao said, you'll know when you go in. Since the 10-directional suicide tower was the same as the Tower of Trials, the disciples of the sect of all times should know. However, they had been cultivating from the first to the fifth floor, and no one had entered the sixth floor. It wasn't that they couldn't enter, but that there was no need for them to do so. This was because the tempering of the first 5 floors required time to stabilize, and it definitely couldn't be done in one go. Take Xiao Ziji for example. After entering the Tower of Trials, most of the time would be spent on tempering the body. If not for the Patriarch's constant emphasis on balanced development, he wouldn't have the time to temper his spirit energy and soul. As for speed-type disciples like Su Xiaoma and Li Fei, they often preferred tempering their movement techniques. Therefore, in the exploration of the Tower of Trials, the sect of all times still stopped at the 5th floor. Buzz. After ascending to the 6th heaven and earth, the projection array was set up again, and a new scene appeared on the light screen outside. It was a colorful world. Colorful light spots floated in the air, like fireflies in the night. I am the 5 elements martial emperor, and I am here to create the 5 elements heaven and earth. If the younger generation passes, they will be able to obtain a chance to temper the 5 elements, and those who are fated will be able to obtain the inheritance of the 5 elements body. 5 elements body. City Lord Han and Mu Changhong stared with their eyes wide open. This kind of physique was definitely one of the strongest physiques since ancient times. The possessor could easily control the 5 elements and become a complete cultivator of all 5 elements. 5 elements body. Jun Changshao thought, it's the most common and most awesome physique in many fantasy novels. The system said, host has the 5 elements heavenly art, if you have the 5 elements body, you will definitely be like a tiger that has grown wings. Jun Changshao's eyes immediately lit up. If he could obtain the physique of the 10-directional suicide tower, his first thought would be to let his disciples inherit it. For example, the Great Desolation body would be given to Xiao Ziji, and the Gale body would be chosen from Su Xiaoma and Li Fei. The reason why he was so straightforward was because he had the Sacred Flame body. However, if he obtained the 5 elements body, he still hoped to use it himself. If the disciple was strong, the sect would be strong. If the patriarch was strong, the sect would be even stronger. Xinyao. Jun Changshao said, continue to study the array and strive to repair the reward function. Yes. Shengguan Xinyao nodded, but then said, Patriarch, this disciple has already analyzed the array, the reward function has a probability, even if it is repaired, it might not be able to obtain the physique that exists within. That's simple. Jun Changshao said, take full control of the entire array, adjust the probability to 100%, or directly take it out from inside. This, Shengguan Xinyao said, it's difficult. Only when there is difficulty will there be a challenge. I believe you can do it. Jun Changshao said. Shengguan Xinyao, who was originally a little unconfident, immediately clenched her small fists and said with a firm gaze, this disciple will definitely work hard. This world contains the power of the 5 elements, and will release the attributes of the 5 elements. The 5 elements martial emperor's heavy voice sounded, those who enter not only have to bear it, but also have to refine it for their own use. Only those who meet the requirements are qualified to enter the 7th world. Refine it for my own use? Suddenly, a vast and majestic heaven and earth attribute filled the space, which was full of the 5 elements of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. Moreover, from the level, not only was it rich, but it was also very pure. Patriarch. Li Qingyang said in surprise, the heaven and earth attribute here is even stronger than the spirit gathering array. Jun Changshao said, what are you waiting for, hurry up and absorb it. Swish. Swish. All the disciples sat down cross-legged. It was definitely impossible to absorb the heaven and earth attribute here without the 5 elements. However, the disciples of the sect of all times who cultivated the 5 elements heaven reflection art had at least condensed one element, so it was not difficult to absorb it. The brown earth attribute began to be drawn over by Xiao Ziji after he circulated his mental cultivation method, and then it instantly spread all over his body, entering his body through his mouth, nose, and pores. Su Xiaoma, Li Fei, and the others were also absorbing their own attributes. Oh my God! All the disciples of the sect of all times are martial cultivators of one of the 5 elements. This is too amazing. Many people saw the energy of the 5 elements flowing into the bodies of the disciples of the sect of all times through the light screen, and their eyes were filled with shock. In the falling star continents attribute system, the most common attribute was the universal attribute. Anyone who cultivated the mental cultivation method could absorb it and condense it in their body to increase their realm and strength. Other than the universal attribute, there were the various elements of metal, wood, water, fire, earth, and so on. If one could absorb one element, such as the fire attribute, then one would be considered a fire cultivator. The disciples of the sect of all times in the 6th heaven and earth could absorb one element from each of the 5 elements. This would definitely stun the world. Quick, look at Yixingqian. Someone said. Everyone looked over and saw that the guy was still standing at the center of the light screen. The elements representing the fire element, the metal element, and the earth element continued to envelop him. This guy cultivates 3 of the 5 elements. Look! The wood attribute is also flying over. He cultivates 4 of the 5 elements. Just as everyone was in shock, the water attribute was also beginning to converge on Yixingqian. Then, all the martial artists in the continent exclaimed in unison, cultivator of all 5 elements. Senior brother Yi is amazing. In the sect of all times, when the disciples saw the 5 elements converging on the light screen, their eyes were filled with intense admiration. Many of them had already started to come into contact with the 5 elements heaven reflection technique, but they were only at the stage of condensing one element. This level of condensing all 5 elements could only be used as a fantasy for now. TSK. Jun Changshao said in surprise, I didn't expect this guy to secretly cultivate all 5 elements. Chapter 797. Yixingqian, who had absorbed the 5 elements in the 5 elements realm, had undoubtedly become the brightest star in the entire venue. Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the others who had already cultivated multiple elements received the patriarch's order and chose to absorb one element at a time, leaving the stage to their junior. Flowers were beautiful, but they could not be without green leaves to serve as a foil. At this moment, everyone, including Jun Changshao, was trying their best to act as a supporting character. They were all trying their best to set off Yixing. This was the friendship between fellow disciples who had deep feelings for each other. Stars fly and clouds scatter, the sun and the moon join the stars. The organized fans cheered excitedly when they saw their idol shining brightly on the screen. They were so emotional that they were tearing up. After going through these 2 realms, Xingqian should have absorbed a lot of fans. Jun Changshao muttered in his heart, if there's a chance to bring him out in the future, he might even earn a lot of money. Of course. He definitely could not let Yixingqian sing and dance. He could practice martial arts in the city's fighting arena. At the very least, he could produce a portrait, autobiography, or autograph session. Jun Changshao felt a little excited at the thought of Yi Xingqian wearing sunglasses, a windbreaker, and a cold expression as he entered the venue under the protection of his bodyguards. Countless fans would hold light sticks and shout loudly. The system said, "Host, do you want to completely deviate the style of this world? In an era where entertainment is scarce, can't we create a celebrity so that other than practicing martial arts, they can have an idol to dream about?" Jun Changshao said. "Why don't you debut as the center?" The system said, "I think that once the Sect of all times patriarch sexy portrait hits the market, it will definitely take the entire Starfall continent by storm." "No, no." Jun Changshao said guiltily, "I'm thin-skinned." The system said, "You're so thick-skinned that you can't even die after taking a hit from the upper realm." Thin-skinned my ass. Fuck. I relied on my strength and equipment to endure it. I didn't use my face to receive it. Jun Chang said with a smile. The system mocked, "Don't deny it. You used your face to receive it, or else you wouldn't have been able to withstand it." Therefore, during the Battle of the Dragons and Tigers, how did Jun Patriarch manage to withstand the palm strike from the upper realm? Now that he thought about it, it was really worth pondering. Who? 2 hours later, the 5 elements that existed between heaven and earth suddenly dissipated. Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the others opened their eyes, their faces full of unsatisfied expressions. The 6th heaven and earth didn't have any dangers, but it was even more difficult than the previous 5, because if one didn't cultivate one of the 5 elements, it would definitely be difficult to pass. Even in the ancient times when experts were as common as clouds, there were very few martial artists who could pass through this world. However, the disciples of the Sect of all times who cultivated the 5 elements heaven reflection mantra were all able to condense one. Furthermore, the mantra was of a very high level, so passing the test was a piece of cake. Is it over just like that? It's not fun. Su Xiaoma and Li Fei mumbled. Xinyao. Jun Changshao asked, "How's the research going?" Shengguan Xinyao wiped the sweat off her forehead, and said, "There's still no progress." "Then rest for a while, don't tire yourself out." Jun Changshao said. He didn't plan to continue to challenge the 7th heaven and earth, but let everyone recuperate on the spot and wait for the 3-day time limit before going up. Disperse, disperse. Seeing this situation, everyone knew that the Sect of all times didn't plan to challenge it, so they all busied themselves with their own matters. However, on the way back, the topic of discussion never left. Why did Yi Xingqian, who originally came in lying down, suddenly seem to be a different person, and his performance was more outstanding than the other disciples? Shengguan Xinyao, who had been working continuously for several days, didn't think about the formation anymore. Instead, she sat down cross-legged and adjusted her slightly chaotic thoughts. Zhen Dejuan, who was outside, also had a chance to breathe. After all, he had been answering the girl's doubts about various formations. However, what made him gratified was that bringing Shengguan Xinyao was really a wise choice. If not for this girl, even if he studied for a lifetime, he wouldn't be able to find the flaw. Jun Changshao thought to himself, if Xinyao can solve the formation and help the sect obtain the various physique inheritances in the pagoda, she should be able to obtain a lot of merit points. At that time, there will definitely be a place for her in the Lingyan Pavilion. There were many disciples in the Sect of all times, but there were only 24 places, so he hoped that 24 different disciples would enter. The next day, Shengguan Xinyao continued to study the formation. After a night of rest, her mind also became clear. When she pondered again, she found that there were some more subtle things that she didn't notice. Up until now, the Death Pagoda had already consumed a lot of chapters. Whether or not the follow-up procedures could be omitted, whether or not they could obtain the rewards, all depended on this girl. So, she was also under a lot of pressure. Don't worry, don't panic. You can do it. You definitely won't let the patriarch down. Shangguan Xinyao encouraged herself in her heart. Then, she started to study the ancient formation. Many pictures filled the sea of consciousness. It was like a fast-paced movie that kept changing. The lines and formations also seemed to come alive, constantly moving and changing positions. At that moment, Shangguan Xinyao's soul seemed to fly out of her body and into the vast universe. With a light wave of her jade-like hands, the planets and galaxies were rearranged. No. Wrong. Wrong again, again and again, she deduced and overturned. If it were anyone else, they would have exploded on the spot with this kind of complicated brain work. Patriarch. Li Qingyang reminded her, it's about time to go to the seventh heaven. Wait a little longer, Jun Changshao said. He had to seize every minute and every second to provide more time for the disciples to solve the formation. Swish. At this moment, Shangguan Xinyao, who was sitting cross-legged on the ground, suddenly stood up and said excitedly, Patriarch, Elder Zhen, I found the biggest flaw. Just that, frowning, she said, if I change it, it might cause the formation to explode. The previous changes had been carefully calculated and deduced. Even if it failed, it wouldn't explode. But this time, the flaw found could succeed or explode. Xinyao. Jun Changshao said seriously, no matter what, you have to believe in your own judgment because no one can help you decide. Patriarch. Shangguan Xinyao looked over and saw the encouraging eyes of the patriarch and the nonchalant smiles of the senior brothers. At that moment, everyone gave the most difficult multiple-choice question to their junior sister without any reason to believe. Although Shangguanhong didn't know what the sect of all times was talking about, he could see from the eyes of Jun Changshao and the disciples that they trusted their granddaughter the most. Child. The old man smiled and said, you didn't choose the wrong sect. It's worth your effort and fight for. Understood. Shangguan Xinyao took a deep breath and then closed her eyes. Her spiritual sense merged into the complex array and began to erase a few lines. At the same time, she drew out a few lines. Zhen Dejuan watched the whole process. Seeing this change, his face changed slightly and said to himself, this is really a bold idea. Swish. All of a sudden, the mirror projection formation in the various cities and prefectures was shut down. Why is it gone? We are about to enter the seventh heaven and earth. Why did it suddenly stop? Everyone collapsed. Swish. About half an hour later, the scene was restored again. Jun Changshao and the others were already in another world. Everyone heaved a sigh of relief when they saw the live footage. No. The angle of the scene was bigger and more comprehensive than the previous few times. It was as if they were standing at the highest point. Girl. Zhen Dejuan said telepathically, the internal formation has been connected to the mirror projection formation. Shangguan Xinyao smiled brightly and said, Patriarch, I can adjust the difficulty of this place at will. Do you want to challenge or go to the eighth heaven and earth? Before Jun Changshao could speak, Yi Xingqian said first, challenge the most difficult one. Give him the most difficult one. Okay. Shangguan Xinyao had mastered the formation and gave her senior brother a solo test, and the difficulty was also the highest. Whoosh whoosh. In an instant, extremely powerful negative emotions surged over, corroding Yi Xingqian's consciousness. His pupils constricted, and he squatted on the ground while hugging his head. He said in despair and inferiority, I'm trash. I shouldn't be living in this world. P.S. Readers have always been worried about Su Xiaomo. In fact, he had been using a face-changing mask. It could not only change his appearance, but also his voice. When he returned to the sect, even if he stood in the Taixuan Shengzong martial arts arena, no one would recognize him as Go Sheng. Of course, in the subsequent plot, if the author was kicked in the head by a donkey, his identity might be exposed, and there would be a thrilling farewell. I can't make it up anymore. Chapter 798. Shangguan Xinyao did not choose the wrong sect, because not only did she have the support of the patriarch, she also had the support of her fellow sect members. But Yi Xingqian seemed to have chosen the wrong sect. Because ever since he entered the sect, the number of times he acted cool was not much, but the number of times he made a fool of himself was quite a lot. For example, the test of the seventh heaven and earth originated from negative emotions. Not only did a martial artist have absolute perseverance, but they also had to have a positive attitude. Otherwise, it would be easy to be eroded and lead to despair and inferiority. Knight Emperor's perseverance was indescribable. His attitude towards revenge could be considered positive. If it was normal, he would be able to withstand it. However, the difficulty of the non-challenge was the highest. What was the most difficult? Naturally, it was to activate the age and soul restrictions. When the negative emotions that were several times more than the normal mode swarmed over, Knight Emperor did not even resist. He directly squatted on the ground and howled. He even felt so inferior that he lost the courage to live. Sigh. He could not be blamed for choosing the wrong sect. He could only blame himself for courting death. Quick, quick. Jun Changshao hurriedly said, hurry up and stop. It was not easy to show Yi Xingqian's strength in the previous 2 worlds. This guy was squatting on the ground like a little wife, crying and making a fuss. Wouldn't all their previous efforts be in vain? Xiao. Shangguan Xinyao hurriedly turned off the test mode. I'm too trash. My living in this world is polluting the air, polluting. Yi Xingqian, who was howling in despair, suddenly stopped. Immediately, he was stunned. What did I say just now? The most painful thing in the world was that although the sea of consciousness was controlled by various negative emotions and said things that shouldn't be said, after it was over, he actually remembered it clearly. At that moment, Yi Xingqian squatted on the ground and did not stand up for a long time. He covered his tear-stained face with his hands and roared in his heart, what the hell am I saying? At this time, if there was a song with plum blossoms as the background music, it would definitely be very appropriate. What's going on? Yi Xingqian said that he's trash. I heard it. He even cried. Although Shangguan Xinyao cancelled the test mode in time, Yi Xingqian's words and actions were completely transmitted to the outside world and appear in the eyes of all the martial artists in the continent. The fans, who were still shouting, were all stunned on the spot with tears in their eyes. Their idol was the most outstanding, hard-working, and the most, but now he was denying himself, could not accept it. Everyone. At this moment, Jun Changshao hurriedly tried to smooth things over. The seventh heaven's test is to make people disheartened and despair. My disciple is showing you what it means to be disheartened and helpless. Get. Calm. Yi Xingqian stood stand. When he thought about what he had just done and said in the projection array, he wished he could find a hole to hide in. His acting is so good. I almost believed him. After Jun Changshao's explanation, all the martial artists were enlightened. Xing fans also burst into laughter. They thought proudly, this is my idol's acting. No one will dare to doubt him in the future. Of course. Some people were puzzled. Since there were all kinds of negative auras in the seventh world, why were they fine standing there? Come, come. Jun Changshao said telepathically, this is a live broadcast. You can't be too casual. Act for me. They could not let outsiders know that they were controlling the array. Since they were in the seventh world, they had to act well even if they had to. Su Xiaoma howled and lay down. He clenched his fists and knocked on the ground. This is too embarrassing. I don't want to live anymore. Why do I still have the courage to live in this world? Why don't I just die? Li Qingyang clenched his fists and lowered his head. He tried to blink his tears, but no matter how hard he tried, he could not feel it. At that moment, he turned around to look at Xiao Ziji. He had his back to the camera. He secretly took out a green onion and wiped the corner of his eyes. Soon, his eyes were filled with tears. Life is meaningless. Li Qingyang howled and walked over. He put his arm on Xiao Ziji's shoulder and said telepathically with his back to the camera, "Junior brother, give me some." Clang! The sound of a sword being unsheathed was heard. Jun Changshao placed the sword on his neck. He looked up and said sorrowfully, "Although the sect of all times has been passed down from ancient times, we are still inferior to the world. Jun is ashamed to face the spirits of our ancestors in heaven." His voice was solemn and sorrowful. Fuck. The patriarch is still the best. The patriarch is still the best at acting. What are you bastards looking at? Come and take the sword. Do you really want me to commit suicide in front of everyone? Jun Changshao said telepathically. Patriarch. Su Xiaomao reacted the fastest. He immediately rushed over and snatched the sword away. Then, he clamped it on his neck and cried, "I'm a burden if I live. I'm willing to go to the underworld first." After waiting for a while, Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the others could only care about their own despair. No one came to persuade him. He could only put down the sword and howl, "How can trash like me taint a sword?" Everyone was speechless. They could see that although the disciples of the sect of all times were complaining that they did not want to live, none of them really wanted to die. Just like that, under the eyes of the whole world, Jun Changshao and some of the disciples acted for a full hour. Then, he pretended to suddenly regain his senses and said in shock, What did I do just now? Patriarch. Li Qingyang pointed to the front and said, "The stairs to the 8th heaven and earth have appeared. We passed. We passed just like that." Jun Changshao was not in a hurry to enter the 8th heaven and earth. He continued to rest where he was. For now, the entire array system that existed in the 10-directional life-ending tower was controlled by Shangguan Xinyao. However, the area in charge of the reward system was in a damaged state, so she still had to work hard. "You can do it," Jun Changshao encouraged her. "Okay." Shangguan Xinyao also had enough confidence. It was not because she controlled the array, but because the patriarch and senior brothers all believed in her. "Let's go." The next day, Jun Changshao led the disciples to the 8th heaven and earth. The test here was the opposite of negative emotions. The cultivators who entered would fall into an illusion where their wishes came true. Some wanted to become a powerhouse. They would have the illusion that they had already become a martial emperor and could summon clouds and rain with a flip of their hand. Some craved beauty and had groups of wives and concubines, living a carefree and happy life. As long as one dared to dream, the 8th heaven and earth would give them everything they wanted. However, the prerequisite was that if they were completely immersed in it and could not extricate themselves, they would be trapped forever. After hearing the illusionary martial emperor's introduction, Jun Changshao did not let Shangguan Xinyao start the test. He continued to act like he was in a drunken stupor with his disciples. When it was over, they would enter the 9th heaven and earth. "Medicine, medicine, medicine." Elder Zhou shouted anxiously. Elder Zhen hurriedly took out a pile of pills and stuffed them into Yi Tianqing's mouth. Passing the 3rd heaven and earth was equivalent to setting a modern record. Now that the sect of all times had entered the 8th heaven and earth, it was equivalent to breaking the ancient record. When he thought about how he could show off to the people from other certification centers in the future, not only could he proudly say that the area he was in charge of had a sect that won the Dragon Tiger Hegemony competition, but he could also proudly say that they had broken the 10-directional life-ending tower's record that had been sealed for 10,000 years. Yi Tianqing was so excited that he could not control himself. The 9th heaven and earth. The test here was more impressive because it combined the physical body, movement technique, spiritual energy, bone honing, soul, 5 elements, negative emotions, and temptation of the previous 8 heavens and earth. Of course, it was not done one by one. It was done by thunder and lightning. In the words of the creator of the ninth heaven and earth, the Thunder Punishment Martial Emperor, this place was called the Thunder Punishment Heaven and Earth. The Thunder Tribulation that descended contained all the tests of the previous 8 levels. As long as one could withstand one attack, one would be qualified to enter the 10th heaven and earth. Xinyao. Jun Changshao said, lower the difficulty to the lowest. I'll give it a try. System, look at Yixingchen. If he wanted to play, he would play the most difficult one. You actually lowered the difficulty to the lowest. What's the point of this? What's the fun in this? Okay. Shangguan Xinyao controlled the array. Whoosh! After a while, in the sky that resembled dusk, rolling thunderclouds gradually condensed and spat out lightning snakes. Boom! The lightning that contained many tests sprayed down and instantly lit up the entire space. It accurately hit Jun Changshao. The physical body, bones, soul, and all kinds of negative emotions and illusions all burst out, instantly causing him to enter a very sour rhythm. Fortunately, the difficulty was the lowest. After a short period of despair, Jun Changshao recovered and said in a cold sweat, if this is a little stronger, I won't be able to withstand it at all. Xingchen, do you want to give it a try? Yi Xingchen was silent. At this time, he did not dare to act cool. Xinyao, open the staircase to the 10th heaven and earth. Okay. Buzz. The staircase to the 10th heaven and earth gradually appeared. He passed. It's over after being struck by lightning? Why is this 10 directions suicide tower getting simpler and simpler? The audience's eyes widened. It was not that it was getting simpler and simpler, but that Jun Changshao had to make it simple. What will the last heaven and earth be? The 10 directions suicide tower was very similar to the Tower of Trials, but the latter only had 9 floors, so Jun Changshao was more curious about the test in the 10th heaven and earth. If it was a hodgepodge of all the tests in the level, then the 9th floor was already there. The more he couldn't figure it out, the more curious he was. Let's go up. After resting for a day, under everyone's gaze, Jun Changshao led his disciple to the staircase to the 10th heaven and earth. The scene on the light screen disappeared again. Everyone was looking forward to the latest scene. But after waiting for a full 15 minutes, the light screen was still dark, and no new image was transmitted in. What's going on? Buzz! An image appeared on the light screen. It was not the so-called 10th heaven and earth, but outside the tower. Zhen Dejuan stood in front of the camera and announced helplessly, there is a restriction in the 10th heaven and earth, and we can't get the image information. No way. Everyone collapsed. There were 10 worlds in the 10 directions suicide tower, and the most important one was definitely the last one. It was hard for anyone to accept that they could not be transmitted out and could not see it with their own eyes. This was like watching a TV series. After waiting for the finale with untold hardships, they would definitely be angry and curse. Although there was no new image transmitted, all the martial artists were still paying attention to the scene outside the tower, because they were waiting to see if the Sect of all times could come out. If they came out, it meant that they had passed the 10 directions suicide tower. In this ancient era where experts were as common as clouds, only martial artists could reach the 6th heaven and earth. If they really passed, the shock it would bring would be very strong. The 10th heaven and earth. This was an even more illusory scene, and Jun Changshao and his disciples, who had entered this place, stood there in a daze. At this moment, images appeared in their eyes, flashing past like passing clouds, and finally fixed on an environment full of spiritual energy. There were mountains, rivers, and all kinds of birds and beasts. The air was filled with a desolate and ancient aura, and Jun Changshao and his disciples seemed to have turned into soul bodies, floating high in the sky, and taking in the scene below. Patriarch. Li Qingyang transmitted his voice. Boom! Boom! Suddenly, a deafening sound was heard. Without thinking, they instinctively turned to look and saw a burly middle-aged man in the sky, holding a mountain in his hand. That was not a mountain. It was more like a miniature version of heaven and earth. Great wilderness destruction. The middle-aged man roared angrily, and the heaven and earth that he was holding suddenly flew out, and then expanded rapidly, as if covering the entire world in an instant. Whoosh whoosh, the wind whistled, and the space shattered. Although Jun Changshao and his disciples were watching from the side as soul bodies, they could clearly feel the explosion of that terrifying power. In an instant, they could tell from the words "great wilderness destruction" and the voice that this middle-aged man must be the martial emperor of the great wilderness on the first level of the 10 Directions Suicide Tower. Break it! Angry roars came from below the heaven and earth of the great wilderness. Several experts whose cultivation were not weaker than the martial emperor of the great wilderness shone with dazzling light, and then a terrifying power burst out, turning into fists and punching. Bang! 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 Every punch was shocking to Jun Changshao and the others, and they were certain that these people's cultivation had reached the martial emperor level. At that time, there were very few martial emperors, but now there were so many of them. Combined with the desolate environment, they immediately realized that what they were seeing now was definitely the scene of the battle of the martial emperors 10,000 years ago. That's right. What appeared before them was the scene of the Battle of the Martial Emperors, where the martial emperor of the Great Wilderness fought against several martial emperors. Bang! 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 Whoosh whoosh, under the bombardment of power, the Great Wilderness destruction began to crack, but it continued to sink. Finally, under the gaze of Jun Changshao and the others, it crashed into the ground. Rumble! At the moment of contact, a corner of the continent could not bear the load and immediately burst open. Then, under the impact of the impact, it floated all the way to the east. Damn! He had directly shattered the world. Jun Changshao and his disciples widened their eyes, and even Yixingqian was shocked. It turned out that the martial emperors of the ancient times were so powerful. When he was at his peak, he would definitely be defeated. Shua! The Great Desolation martial emperor landed and sat cross-legged on the Great Desolation heaven. From his perspective, his back was facing Jun Changshao and the others. His body was gradually petrified from his legs. What was going on? Everyone's faces were filled with astonishment. Ka ka ka, suddenly, a cracking sound could be heard. The crack in the grand wilderness continued to expand and expand. It's about to shatter, Jun Changshao murmured. Ka ka ka. Ka 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 ka. When the heavens and earth of the great wilderness split apart, the lower body of the martial emperor of the great wilderness that was gradually petrified also began to show dense cracks. At that moment, everyone suddenly realized that the vast wilderness was connected to him. AI. The Great Desolation martial emperor let out a long sigh. Before he was completely petrified, he tried his best to turn his head and said with an aged voice, "My great desolation land shall be inherited by you." Jun Changshao was stunned. Subconsciously, he followed the expert's gaze and looked at Xiao Ziji. No. Can he find us? Xiao Ziji said, "Thank you, senior." The two of them looked at each other and smiled. At that moment, they seemed to have crossed time and space. It was like two people from two different eras had completed some kind of ritual at a special node. Ka ka ka, the cracking sound continued. The vast wilderness was already full of scars. The Great Desolation martial emperor of the Great Wilderness was completely petrified. In the end, he completely collapsed under everyone's gaze and turned into dust. The two martial emperors who were suppressed below had their flesh and blood torn apart. Jun Changshao and the others fell silent. The martial emperors of the ancient era died just like that. It was a little sad. Swoosh! At this moment, the scene before his eyes changed again. A streak of light sped through the boundless land at a speed that made one gasp in amazement. Ta! After running for a long time, that person gradually came to a stop. He then shook his head and looked at Su Xiaoma in the sky. He smiled and said, "Little guy, how about I give you this body of gale?" "Thank you, senior," Su Xiaoma said excitedly. Buzz. The space shook and the scene in front of them changed again. An expert was fighting with a few people. Although he was fighting alone, the strength and purity of his spiritual energy were much higher than others. Boom. Boom. The battle lasted for a long time and it was earth-shattering. The land in the south could not withstand the pressure and directly separated from the mainland. Jun Changshao and the others were shocked. The emperor-level expert of the ancient era had such a terrifying cultivation. It was not an exaggeration to say that he could destroy the world. Based on their level of battle, the world was considered lucky that it was not completely destroyed and was only broken into pieces. After an intense battle, the martial emperor who was fighting alone defeated a few experts of the same level. However, he was also severely injured. He then looked at Jun Changshao and the others and said, "Who will inherit my body of spiritual pulse?" "Me." Yi Xingqian spoke first. If it were any other body type, the Night Emperor would definitely maintain his cold demeanor. However, this was the body of spiritual pulse and he could not back down. Martial Emperor Ling Ju looked at Yi Xingqian with a hint of disdain in his eyes. Fuck. What kind of look is that? Could it be that I, a bona fide martial emperor, inheriting a spirit vein is something that he finds very embarrassing? Whoosh. The scene in front of them continued to change. More martial emperors appeared and more intense battles took place in front of them. After watching a few more battles, Jun Changshao finally understood that the 10th world did not test them. It only took them back to 10,000 years ago to witness the earth-shattering battle of the martial emperors. However, what puzzled him was, judging from the scene, it was clearly a scene left behind in advance. Why would Martial Emperor Da Huang, Martial Emperor Qingfeng, and the others capture his and his disciples' presence and choose the inheritor of the body type? Could it be that it was not a movie left behind but a special ability that could fold the space of two different eras together so that they could spy on each other? That's possible, the system said. Whoosh. At that moment, the scene in front of them changed again. They appeared in a forest with lush foliage. This is, Jun Changshao said in surprise, where is the 10-direction life-ending tower? The environment was right but there was no tower. Whoosh. 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 At that moment, streams of light flew over. They were the martial Emperor Da Huang and the others who had died earlier. There was also a black-robed old man who they had not seen in the previous scene. He stood at the place where the 10-direction life-ending tower was supposed to be and said, "Everyone, how about we set up a stone tower here to seal all the body types and leave them for the future generations to inherit?" Jun Changshao was enlightened. No wonder the 10-direction life-ending tower was not here. It was not built yet. Sure. No problem. Martial Emperor Da Huang, Martial Emperor Qingfeng, and the others agreed. The black-robed old man said, "Let's begin." The 9 ancient martial emperors immediately performed their special abilities and took out pieces of square stones. They then piled up a 10-story tower in the shortest time possible. After the tower was built, the scene changed to the inside. The black-robed old man was setting up the array and defense on the first floor. The entire process seemed to be slowed down. However, due to the complexity of the process, Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the others were dazzled. Shangguan Xinyao's face was filled with joy. As the black-robed old man continued setting up, she gradually gained a more comprehensive and intuitive understanding of the array on the first floor. "Have you memorized it?" Jun Changshao asked. Shangguan Xinyao said excitedly, "Patriarch, I've memorized it." Swoosh. At that moment, the scene changed again. The black-robed old man appeared on the second floor and continued setting up the array on the third floor, the fourth floor, and even the 10th floor. I see. Although the array was very complicated, Shangguan Xinyao memorized it all and had a new understanding of the structure inside. Everyone. The black-robed old man said, the array on each heaven and earth has been set up. If someone dies, their body type will be separated and integrated into the array, being sealed forever. However, he paused and said, it can't be taken away easily. Therefore, I suggest that each of you choose a heaven and earth to guard and leave behind a test. Only the fated ones can obtain it. The Great Desolation Martial Emperor was the first to speak. I'll guard the first heaven and earth. I'll guard the second heaven and earth. I'll guard the third heaven and earth. The first to ninth floors were occupied by 9 ancient martial emperors and left behind a test with their abilities. The black-robed old man said, I'll guard the 10th floor. If the future generations can reach here, not only can they obtain the body type stored here, but they can also peek into the array's secrets and control the entire 10 Directions Opportunity Pagoda. It turned out that the stone pagoda's real name was the 10 Directions Opportunity Pagoda. However, due to the difficulty of the challenge, many cultivators died inside. As time passed, it was named the Suicide Pagoda. Next. The black-robed old man raised his head and looked at Shengguan Xinyao. He smiled kindly and said, it's time to set up the reward array. Girl, look carefully. Swoosh. Swoosh. Streams of light flashed as array flags flew out. They were not only placed on the 10th floor but also around the pagoda, forming a pattern similar to the 5 elements 8 trigrams. Swoosh. Swoosh. The messy lines were drawn and then connected to the array. The entire process was done in one go. It meant that the person who set up the array was definitely a top-notch array master. Shengguan Xinyao stared at it without blinking. Images appeared in her sea of consciousness, reorganizing and expanding. Finally, it evolved into an extremely complicated star-scattered chessboard. It's so messy. I can't understand it at all. Li Qingyang and Xiao Ziji didn't have array talent. When they saw the lines drawn, they felt like they were reading a heavenly book. Jun Changshao might be able to understand it, but after receiving so much information at once, he felt like his brain was about to explode. Patriarch. Not long later, Shengguan Xinyao said, I already understand the structure of the pagoda's array. I can control it easily. I can also take the sealed body types at will. Jun Changshao was overjoyed. Swish. At that moment, the scene in front of them disappeared. Everyone returned to the illusory realm of the 10th floor. Wang. With a thought, Shengguan Xianyao instantly fused into the damaged array formation, and then reconnected the damaged array formation. Wang. Wang. After the repair was completed, the space vibrated slightly. One could only see elf-like lights appearing. Patriarch. Shengguan Xinyao said, these are the 10 body types sealed in the pagoda. From left to right, they are the Great Desolation body, Raging Wind body, Spiritual Pulse body, and the last one is the Formation Spirit body. I can summon all of them. You can now distribute them as you wish. Chapter 799. The last world of the 10 Directions Suicide Tower was overseen by the ancient Array Emperor. Inside were some scenes of the Battle of the Emperors 10,000 years ago, as well as the entire process of the array formation. Or perhaps, the black-robed old man who set up the array formation had already calculated that one day in the future, someone would enter the 10th world, so he deliberately left behind the method of setting up the array formation in the form of an image. Rather than calling it a test, it would be better to call it an opportunity for those who passed. Shengguan Xinyao did not disappoint, and successfully controlled the entire tower's array formation system. Not only did she repair the reward mechanism, she also summoned out all the physiques that were sealed within. There was one on each floor, and there were 10 on the 10th floor. They were like a ball of flame, or a flickering spirit, floating in the 10th world. From the first world to the 10th, they were the Great Desolation Physique, Gale Physique, Spiritual Pulse Physique, Sword Transforming Physique, Primordial Spirit Physique, 5 Elements Physique, frustration physique, illusory physique, thunder punishment physique, and formation spirit physique. Li Qingyang said in surprise, so there is a form of the physique. In his understanding, whether it was innate or postnatal physique, they were all illusory. He never thought that they would exist like spirits. Jun Changshao was relatively calm. After all, he had once fused with the sacred flame body, so he had some understanding of what form it was. There are exactly 10 people who came in to challenge, so let's split one each. Hearing this, the disciples' eyes lit up. At this moment, Jun Patriarch had taken all the physiques for himself, so the disciples would definitely not say anything. After all, he was the boss, so what he said was final. But it was definitely unrealistic for him to fuse with so many physiques. Not to mention, if all the good things were given to him, then what would the disciple use to represent the sect in the future? Xinyao. Jun Changshao pointed to the ball of flame-like light on the far right, and said, the formation spirit body should be related to the array formation, so I will let you inherit it. Thank you, Patriarch. Shangguan Xinyao happily summoned the physique over. The little guy was not disgusted. It circled around her in circles, as if it was very happy. Although this kind of physique that was similar to light could not speak, it had its own thoughts and was able to form some kind of connection with the martial warriors. I have sinned. Jun Changshao said, the great desolate physique is yours. In the previous image, the great desolation martial emperor had looked at Xiao Ziji, so it was most suitable for him to inherit this constitution. Yes. Xiao Ziji walked over and held the great desolate physique in his hands. When his palm came into contact with the light, a thick and heavy aura spread out, instantly making him excited and agitated. Bubbly foam, the body of Gale is yours. Yes. Su Xiaoma and Li Fei were both speed-type martial artists, but the former was a little faster, while the latter's specialty was his leg strength. Zhou Hong, the sword transformation body is yours. After all, Jun Changshao did not deliberately pursue the sword Dao. Among the disciples present, he was the only one who could inherit it. Body of spiritual veins, Patriarch. Yi Xingqian said without hesitation, this disciple is willing to inherit. Although the other physiques were not bad, he did not care about them. He only hoped to inherit the physique that would allow him to increase his cultivation faster. All right. Jun Changshao said, take it. Thank you, Patriarch. Yi Xingqian anxiously walked over and held the body of spiritual veins in his hands, a smile appearing on his face. Night Emperor laughed. Night Emperor actually laughed. However, the body of spiritual veins in his hands was struggling, as if it was not satisfied with its new owner. Behave yourself. Yi Xingqian shouted in a deep voice. With such a scare, the little guy immediately became obedient. Jun Changshao said, Elder Jiang, I'll give you the primordial spirit body. Thank you, Patriarch. Jiang Ye took the primordial spirit body and wondered in his heart, what is the use of this thing? If he knew that the primordial spirit body could accurately capture everything around it like spiritual sense, he would definitely jump up in excitement. After all, it would undoubtedly be of great help in finding his sister. Little Fei. Jun Changshao said, choose one. Li Fei scratched his head, and said, disciple will choose the body of frustration. What about you? Jun Changshao looked at Lu Qianqian. Lu Qianqian said, disciple doesn't need it. She already had an ice attribute physique, so she wasn't interested in other physiques. You really don't want it? No. Alright then. Jun Changshao looked at Li Qingyang and said, there's still the body of illusionary dream and the body of thunder punishment left, you can choose one. Li Qingyang scratched his head and said, Patriarch, these two physiques don't seem to be of much use to this disciple. It's better to leave them for suitable fellow disciples. Jun Changshao said, even if it's not suitable, you have to choose one. He knew that his second disciple had a gentle personality and did not fight for anything. However, since he was here to challenge the level, he naturally could not lack the benefits. How about this? Jun Changshao said, body of illusionary dream for Qianqian, body of thunder punishment for you. Yes. Li Qingyang held up the body of thunder punishment. Lu Qianqian could only give up the body of illusionary dream. If the martial artists in the outside world knew that the two of them were forced to accept the physiques by the patriarch, they would definitely be extremely envious. This kind of physique from ancient times, even if it was not of any substantial help to martial arts, they would definitely not dislike it. They would take as many as they could. 9 out of 10 physiques were divided, and the remaining 5 elements physique would definitely be Jun Changxiao's. Patriarch Su Xiaoma said, how do we fuse? Sit down cross-legged and communicate with it with your spiritual thoughts, guiding it into your body, Jun Changxiao said. Swoosh. Swoosh. Everyone sat down cross-legged. Whoosh. Xiao Ziji was the first to communicate with the great desolate physique. When his spiritual thoughts touched it, the other party turned into a cloud and covered his entire body. The process of fusing the physiques was extremely simple. When he absorbed all the cloud and mist, a small world the size of a fingernail gradually condensed in his dantian. This was the great desolate world. Although it was very small, after successfully condensing, it established a certain connection with his flesh and blood. Xiao Ziji communicated with it slightly and felt that the strength and hardness of his body had increased by a lot. The great desolate world had just been condensed, and the defensive strength it provided was limited. If he wanted to use it in the future, he would definitely have to temper and strengthen it. As for reaching the level where the great desolate martial emperor could use it to smash people, there was still a long way to go. Jun Changshao did not wish for his disciple to one day use the great desolate world to smash people, because at this step, it would definitely be a battle of life and death. Zizi. Li Qingyang stood up and opened his right hand. Streaks of lightning condensed in his palm, and he said in surprise, I'm a lightning cultivator now. Ha ha ha. Su Xiaoma's laughter could be heard. A whirlwind gathered under his feet, and he ran at his fastest speed. Zhou Hong stood up. He looked very normal, but the sharpness around him was as if his entire body had turned into a sharp sword. My spiritual thoughts have been strengthened. After Jiangya merged with his primordial spirit, his eyes flashed with ecstasy. With a slight release, it could even spread to a range of more than 10 miles. Patriarch Li Fei opened his right hand, and a ball of black attributes condensed. He said, what's the use of my physique? Find a target and try it. Jun Changshao said. Oh. Li Fei threw it at Su Xiaoma, who had just stopped. When the black attributes merged into his body, the latter knelt on the ground and cried, I'm not even comparable to an ant, my life is meaningless. This was not an act, it was real. Do you understand now? Jun Changshao said. Li Fei was enlightened, I understand, the attributes condensed by my physique can make people depressed and despair. Xiao. At this moment, his sea of consciousness was suddenly penetrated by some kind of energy. Li Fei was stunned. He suddenly felt as if he had turned into a bird, and then flapped his wings, flying freely in the sky. Fly, 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 he waved his hands with a silly smile and ran around the 10th heaven, looking very funny. Jun Changxiao's mouth twitched, and then he looked at Lu Qianqian. Needless to say, this woman must have fused with the illusory body, causing Li Fei to fall into fantasy and dream. Ha ha ha. Ha 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 ha. Suddenly, Yi Xingqian covered his face and laughed. He had already fused with the spirit vein physique. As long as he circulated the Taixuan Sutra and body metamorphosis scripture slightly, he could feel extremely pure attributes of heaven and earth spreading over like a tsunami. With this physique, there was no need to worry about not being able to break through quickly. This incident tells us that no matter how arrogant and cold a person is, as long as they encounter something that makes them feel good, they will also laugh until they lose control of their bladder. Everyone. Suddenly, the Array Emperor's old voice sounded, "Congratulations on inheriting the physique sealed in the 10 Directions Opportunity Pagoda, but you also have to bear the responsibility." Responsibility? Jun Changshao said. The Array Emperor continued, "Why did the War of the Thearchs happen 10,000 years ago, aren't you curious?" Not curious. Jun Changshao said, "Xinyao, open the entrance to the outside world, we'll return to the sect." Yes. The Array Emperor, fusing with the physique and then leaving, this was too fucked up. Buzz. The space shook, and the stairs to the outside world opened. Jun Changshao cupped his hands and said, "Sorry for the disturbance." Then, he was about to leave with his disciples. "Young man." The Array Emperor hurriedly said, "Wait, I'm not finished." Chapter 800. Jun Changshao wasn't interested in finding out why the War of the Emperors had happened 10,000 years ago. In his opinion, since he had already obtained the benefits of the 10-directional life-ending tower, and he and his disciples had also inherited the constitution, he would definitely leave happily. Moreover, the entire continent was still waiting for him to pass. That's right, that's right. His main purpose of entering the 10 Directions Suicide Tower was to raise his ranking on the hero-seeking board. He had brought his disciple through the tower without any injuries and had broken many records. He would definitely raise his ranking. Obtaining 10 physiques would raise his sect's ranking. Jun Changshao suddenly felt like he had reached the pinnacle of his life. Patriarch. Shangguan Xinyao said, "Senior Array Emperor must have something important to tell us. Otherwise, he wouldn't have left a trace of his remnant soul in the tower." "All right." Jun Changshao stopped and said, "For the sake of my precious disciple, I'll give you a few minutes. Hurry up and say everything you need to say." "Young man." The remnant soul of the Array Emperor in the formation said, 10,000 years ago, the War of Emperors started because the falling star continent was invaded by foreign tribes from other realms." Invaded by foreign tribes? Jun Changshao asked in surprise. The Array Emperor said, "It's a special existence without a physical body. It can control a martial artist's soul and do things that bring disaster to the world." The experts killed by Martial Emperor Da Huang and Martial Emperor Ling Ju were controlled by the foreign tribes? Jun Changshao asked. "That's right," the Array Emperor said. Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the others' faces changed slightly. They did not see anything different about the martial emperors who were killed earlier. Jun Changshao was speechless. Wasn't this kind of realm invasion a little too old-fashioned? Get to the point. Jun Changshao said, "For example, what's our responsibility?" The Array Emperor said, "Although Martial Emperor Da Huang and the others sacrificed themselves to defeat the foreign tribes, their ambitions will not disappear just like that. They will definitely come back in the future. All of you must take up the responsibility of protecting the falling star continent." "I'm sorry." Jun Changshao said, "The responsibility of saving the common people and maintaining world peace should be left to others." Suddenly, someone asked you to protect the entire continent. It was like running into an old faker who claimed that he was the hero who saved the world when he went out to buy soy sauce. "Young man." The Formation Emperor said solemnly, "You have all inherited the physique legacies left behind by the emperors. You must do your best for the falling star continent." "Sorry, I'm not interested." Jun Changshao said, let's go." Everyone followed him and was about to walk out of the pagoda. The Formation Emperor hurriedly said, "Young man, if you protect the falling star continent, you will definitely be rewarded." Schwa. Jun Changshao returned to his previous position and said, "Everyone is responsible for the rise and fall of the continent." The corners of the disciples' mouths twitched. Speaking of benefits, the speed of the Patriarch's return was almost as fast as Wu Xing's teleportation. The Formation Emperor did not expect that his words of benefits would make this guy change his attitude immediately, so he continued, this foreign race from other planes can be called the soul race. They do not have a physical body and exist in the form of souls. As long as they occupy the body of a human, they will inherit the cultivation realm and martial arts. Even their style of doing things will be the same as the original owner. Jun Changshao asked curiously, how did you find out? The Formation Emperor said, these foreign races have a special method. They can devour the energy of any living creature and strengthen themselves over and over again. Jun Changshao said, be more specific. The Formation Emperor said, every flower and grass in the star-field continent contains more or less energy under the nourishment of heaven and earth. The soul race can absorb them and use them for themselves. This is only for flowers and grass. If they absorb martial artists of higher cultivation realms, their strength will increase even faster. If they are allowed to do whatever they want, the end result will be that the entire falling star continent will be sucked dry of spirit qi and become a wasteland. That's a little scary, Jun Changshao said. The Formation Emperor said, when the soul race absorbs energy, they will release a green attribute. Later on, we found out. After careful investigation, we found out that they are foreign races from other planes. Like locusts, they will crazily devour the energy of every plane they come to. They will only leave when they completely destroy it. How many soul race invaded the falling star continent 10,000 years ago? 9. The corner of Jun Changshao's mouth twitched. 9 foreign races triggered a war between the emperors. In the end, the entire continent was torn apart. That was too exaggerated. He had not experienced that era and did not know that the soul race that occupied the 9 martial emperors had been absorbing energy in the early stages. When they found out, the experts of the falling star continent could not defeat them at all. In the end, they could only kill them with the determination to perish together. For example, the scene earlier. The Great Desolation Martial Emperor used the Great Desolation World to suppress the 2 foreign races easily. In fact, the complete scene was that more martial emperors had already fought with them multiple times, and in the end, they were either dead or injured. Seeing that he could not defeat them after a long time and that countless of his companions had died, the Great Desolation Martial Emperor finally made up his mind and used the Great Desolation World to perish together with the 2 foreign race experts. The Formation Emperor said, the soul race will not give up on destroying the falling star continent. One day, they will make a comeback. I hope that you can inherit the constitution and will of your ancestors and fight them to the death. Senior. Jun Changshao said, let's put these things aside first and talk about the benefits. The Formation Emperor, I said it so tragically. Did he not feel anything? There are benefits. The Formation Emperor said, but it will depend on your performance in the future. Fuck. Jun Changshao immediately turned hostile. It feels like there are no benefits. You are deliberately tricking me. Young man. The Formation Emperor roared, are there only benefits in your eyes and no lives in the world? The world is bustling with activity for profit, and the world is bustling with activity for profit. Jun Chang smiled and said, only things with benefits can move people's hearts. Otherwise, I'm not interested. If there are no benefits, I will leave. Young man, when the nest is overturned, no egg can remain intact. When the foreign race invades and the world is destroyed, do you think you can still live? The Formation Emperor roared angrily. Jun Changshao stopped and rubbed his chin. That makes sense. The Formation Emperor said, if you inherit the constitution, you will not only save the world, but also save yourselves. Jun Changshao said, are you sure the soul race will invade the falling star continent again? The Formation Emperor said with certainty, as long as the falling star continent still has spiritual energy, they will not give up. Do you have a specific time of invasion? Jun Changshao asked. The Formation Emperor was silent for a moment, then said, it may take a long time. Maybe they have already arrived at the falling star continent and have taken over human bodies. They are slowly growing. Where is the soul race's nest? Jun Changshao asked. The Formation Emperor said, why do you ask? Jun Changshao shrugged and said, invade them and nip the danger in the cradle in advance. Invade them. Chapter 801. If the Array Emperor had a physical body, his eyes would be wide open right now. He and the other martial emperors who had died on the battlefield only thought about how to defend against the invasion of other races. They had never thought about invading other races. Jun Changshao was different. Since he knew that the other party would come back, why should he wait? He might as well gather his people and kill them. Their souls would fall, their gods would tremble, and their ghosts would tremble. Defend and invade. It represented passivity and initiative. With Jun Changshao's personality, if he knew that someone was targeting his sect and disciples, he would definitely take the initiative to attack first instead of passively accepting it. The Array Emperor said, the soul race's world is extremely dangerous. Invading them is the same as committing suicide. You don't have to worry about that. Jun Changshao said, tell me the coordinates, I have my ways to deal with it. The falling star continent and the soul race's world are very far apart. Without the ability to travel through space, it would be difficult to do so. The Array Emperor said. Jun Changshao asked curiously, if that's the case, how did they come to the falling star continent? The Array Emperor said, 10,000 years ago, cracks appeared in space and formed a passage-like vortex. They should have used this method to come here. What about the passageway? I sealed it with a formation. Where is it? North of the continent, the land of yellow sand. The system said, it should be the northern desert state after the continent fell apart. Does the soul race have a hobby of collecting all kinds of martial arts resources? Jun Changshao asked. The Array Emperor said, although they are other races, they also need spirit stones to increase their cultivation. They also need ores to forge all kinds of equipment to make themselves stronger. Jun Changshao's eyes lit up. Although the Array Emperor did not say what benefits there were, in his opinion, if they had the chance to invade the other races, they would definitely gain more benefits. Since the Sect of all times has inherited the constitution, we will naturally take on the responsibility of protecting the world. Jun Changshao said. The system, as a host, I can't be so righteous. I won't disturb Senior's everlasting existence. I'll take my leave first. Jun Changshao snapped his fingers and said, let's go. Soon, the disciples followed him up the stairs and left the 10-directional life-ending tower. Sigh. The Array Emperor sighed and said, I've waited for 10,000 years for a guy like this. Asking him to save the world feels a little unreliable. His voice grew weaker as he spoke. A sliver of remnant will had been sealed within the pagoda, waiting for the fated ones to pass through the 10 Directions Opportunity Pagoda. Now that it had completed its mission, it could no longer exist in the world. Outside, the projection arrays were still suspended in the sky above the major cities. Everyone was waiting anxiously. Creak. Suddenly, the 2 doors on the first floor of the tower were pushed open from the inside. He's out. Jun Patriarch and the others have come out. The martial artists who had been watching the projection array all this time suddenly cried out in surprise when they saw Jun Changshao and the others walk out of the pagoda one by one. Going in neatly and coming out neatly, they would definitely clear the stage without any injuries. Everyone. Jun Changshao looked up at the screen and grinned. The Sect of all times has successfully cleared the 10-directional Fate Tower. Amazing. Unbelievable. Hearing him say it personally, all the martial artists on the falling star continent looked at him with admiration and envy. Although there was no reward for this forbidden area that had existed for tens of thousands of years, being able to clear the stage without any injuries was definitely enough to prove their strength. Jun Patriarch. City Lord Han transmitted his voice. What's the test of the 10th heaven and earth? It's just a normal test, Jun Changshao replied. City Lord Han could tell that this guy didn't want to tell him about the 10th heaven and earth, so he didn't ask any more questions. Instead, he smiled and said, Jun Patriarch, when will you pay the 10,000 spirit stones? Jun Changshao was honest and gave him 10,000 artificial spirit stones as the rental fee for using the projection array system. City Lord Han said, if you want to use it again in the future, you can come find me at any time. After tasting the sweetness, he started to think, why not rent out the projection array system that he had set up for the dragon and tiger battle for supremacy to earn some money. City Lord Han didn't lack spirit stones. However, he had nothing to do with the array system. He could use it to earn some extra money and also cover the daily maintenance costs. Okay. Jun Changshao cupped his hands and then chatted with City Lord Mu for a while. Then, he ordered Jin Dejuan to remove the projection array and returned to the sect with his disciples. On the way, Li Qingyang said, Patriarch, we have a great responsibility now. You don't really want to save the world, do you? Jun Changshao said. Li Qingyang was startled. Didn't Patriarch already promise senior formation emperor? He did, but... Jun Changshao said, to save the world, we have to act within our means. He didn't think that with his and his sect's strength, they could save the world. Not to mention that even if the sky collapsed, there were still the first and second-rate sects to hold it up. Qingyang, the most important task now is to make yourself stronger. When you have absolute strength in the future, not to mention saving the world, saving the entire universe won't be a problem. Jun Changshao said. Li Qingyang said solemnly, I understand. The matter of challenging the 10 Directions Suicide Tower came to a perfect end. The physiques that existed inside were all taken away by the Sect of all times. So even if the array was repaired now, even if the reward mechanism was adjusted to 100%, it was meaningless. The medical sage and demon emperor who knew about it in the underworld would definitely be able to face it calmly. The forbidden land that had existed for thousands of years couldn't escape being scourged by Jun Changshao. His own things were not worth mentioning at all. Of course. The matter of the Sect of all times bravely challenging the 10 Directions Suicide Tower and clearing it without any injuries would definitely be widely spread in the Falling Star continent. Not to mention, it was even a live broadcast. The latest issue of the List of Heroes was released at the stipulated time. The Sect of all times rose from 90th to 80th, not bad, not bad. Looking at the list, Jun Changshao smiled. The sect had reached 4th rate and was ranked 80th on the list of heroes. It had already met the 7th most basic requirement of the epic mission. Of course, Jun Patriarch would definitely not be satisfied. After all, meeting the most basic requirement was only 100%. He had to exceed it and obtain a higher mission reward. Patriarch Su Xiaoma came to meet him and said, this disciple has been out of the Taishianxing zone for a while. It's time to go back. Jun Changshao said, be careful when you go back. If you feel that your identity has been exposed, do not hesitate and quickly return to the sect. Yes. After eating Lu Wancher's food, Su Xiaoma left the Sect of all times. Then, he found a place where no one was around and put on the mask again, turning into a pale and sickly youth. At this moment, he was the outer disciple of the Taishianxing zone, Go Sheng. Boom! Boom! In a mountain forest, there was a loud explosion. Ka! 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 A fist mark appeared on the mountain wall under the strong impact. Then, it began to gradually shatter and spread in all directions, as if it was going to collapse at any time. A black-robed man once again punched the depression and roared, I was tricked. I was actually tricked. Chapter 802. Dai Lu was very angry. He was so angry that he crazily bombarded the stone wall. There was no other reason. During the battle of the dragons and tigers, he took a yellowed map to look for treasures. He had worn out several pairs of shoes and finally found the location of the treasures. In the end, there was nothing. What made him even more depressed was that he met many martial artists one after another, each of them holding a map that was exactly the same as his. Everyone sat together and after some discussion, they found out that the maps were all bought from the old man on the street. Therefore, a normal person immediately realized that they had been cheated. Dai Lu raised his head and roared. The green attribute around him instantly spread out like waves. The nearby plants that came into contact with it instantly withered from their lush state. He originally thought that he could rely on the map to find opportunities to improve his cultivation and then seek revenge on the Sect of all times and Yixingqian. In the end, it was all for naught. This was unacceptable. Dai Lu roared, "Is it so difficult for me to take revenge? Kid." Suddenly, a sinister voice sounded in his ear, "To become stronger, you should absorb the energy of others. Only the weak would rely on such an illusory opportunity." "Who is it?" Dai Lu exclaimed. The voice continued, "You can call me Hun, or you can call me Lord." Dai Lu said coldly, "Get out of my body." He. The existence that called itself Hun laughed strangely, "Once I leave, the devouring power will disappear immediately. You have to think carefully." Dai Lu's expression changed. He was now a martial king. All of this came from the devouring power. If he lost it, he would definitely not be able to accept it. "Kid, with my help, you can become stronger. Only then can you trample the Sect of all times and Yixingqian in the palm of your hand." Hun laughed strangely. Dai Lu said in a low voice, "Really? Although you have some understanding of the devouring power in the past 2 years, it has only stopped at the most basic level. Now that I have awakened, I will teach you how to use it correctly," Hun said proudly. "How do I use it?" Dai Lu's heart skipped a beat. He had obtained the devouring power for no reason, and now there was a fellow who called himself Soul in his body for no reason. He quickly adapted to it. The devouring power can only be refined into purer energy when it is combined with the devouring heart sutra. "I will teach you now." In an instant, a series of seemingly comprehensible chants appeared in Dai Lu's sea of consciousness, causing him to unconsciously immerse himself in them. After a while, his eyes suddenly glowed with a burning luster. "Brat." Soul said proudly, "I'm not bragging, but once I've comprehended 20 to 30% of the mantra, I can easily trample on the Sect of all times and Yixingqian." Crack. Dai Lu clenched his fists. His eyes flickered with a green light as he said, "I look forward to that day." Achoo! Jun Changshao, who was sitting in the study, sneezed, then rubbed his nose and said, "Is someone scolding me?" The system said, "The host has inherited the ancient era's physique. Are you really not planning to do anything for the falling star continent? Even the ancient era's martial emperors could be controlled by the foreign races. I want to do something, but my strength doesn't allow me to." Jun Changshao said helplessly. The system said, "They didn't say to let you save the world immediately. They passed the physique to their disciple in the hope that when you become stronger in the future, you can protect this plane." "We'll see," Jun Changshao said. The system was speechless. "This is because they didn't offend your sect or disciple. Otherwise, the host would have already expressed his stance." "Of course." Jun Changshao said seriously, "How dare they offend the Sect of all times and touch my disciple? Not to mention the soul race, even if it's the Pa race, I will kill them all." So to prevent a disaster from happening, I think the host should focus more on the foreign races. It's best to find time to go to the northern desert state to see if you can break the formation and invade the foreign races through the passage. You can nip the danger in the bud, the system urged. "Makes sense." "That's not right." Jun Changshao suddenly became alert. This concerns the survival of the human race. Why is an emotionless machine like you so active? Of course. The system said, if the host is fighting against the foreign races, if you're not strong enough, you'll be tortured to death. You'll have to rely on the merchant store. This will stimulate spending. Fuck. Jun Changshao broke down. You want me to spend money? Don't be so direct. Can I become stronger just by relying on this mental cultivation method? The Devouring Heart Sutra can only make you stronger to a certain extent. If you want to break through to a higher level, such as breaking through the void, you'll have to inherit the devouring bloodline. Breaking through the void? Dai Lu's eyes turned green. How do I inherit the devouring bloodline? There's an area sealed by a formation in the desert of the northern desert state. Once you break it, you'll enter an independent space. The devouring bloodline is there. Ta! Dai Lu stopped and said warily, why do you want to help me become stronger? Do you have other intentions? Soul, he was fooled by an old man from a street stall to look for treasure. Why did he suddenly say something like this? It's simple. Soul said, we have a common enemy. The Sect of all times? That's right. I see. Dai Lu understood and said hatefully, let's work together and let this sect say goodbye to the Jianghu. The Sect of all times is a bit strong. It's hard to trample them with just the Heart Sutra. So I suggest you go to the northern desert state and break the formation seal to find the devouring bloodline, Soul said. I don't know anything about formations. It's okay. As long as you go, I'll be in charge of breaking the formation. Okay. Brother Green Scarf resolutely stepped on the road to the northern desert state. He started to imagine himself having the devouring bloodline. After taking revenge, he would break through the void and ascend to the upper world. Xinyao, get ready. Jun Changshao said, follow me to the northern desert state in 2 days. We'll find the area where the Formation Emperor sealed the space passage. Patriarch, are you going to the foreign world? Shangguan Xinyao asked with widened eyes. Jun Changshao said, since the space passage connects 2 worlds, I'm worried that it might be loose. If it's destroyed by the foreign world, it'll be troublesome. Understood. Shangguan Xinyao said, Patriarch, you're asking me to reinforce it. Patriarch, you're so considerate. It's really a blessing for the common people. Shangguan Xinyao's words made Jun Changshao feel embarrassed. After all, they were just going to confirm the entrance to the foreign world's territory. Their motive was not for the common people. Patriarch. Yi Xingqian volunteered, I'm willing to accompany you. After knowing the reason for the War of the Emperors 10,000 years ago, he was very curious about the Soul tribe. Sure. After arranging the sect's affairs, Jun Changshao picked a day to bring Shangguan Xinyao and Yi Xingqian to the northern desert state. Hoo. In the northwestern He state, Dai Lu was also devouring energy on the way. Because he had the mental cultivation technique, his cultivation level was increasing very quickly. Not bad, not bad. Hun said with satisfaction, with your current growth speed, even if you don't challenge the entire sect of all times, it shouldn't be a problem to take down Yi Xingqian. Dai Lu smiled coldly and said, don't let me meet that guy. Hoo. In the desert of the northern desert state, the wind was howling. Sand and dust filled the sky like a storm. Patriarch. Shangguan Xinyao opened her eyes and said, this is the place where Senior Array the Arch set up the array back then. Can you control it? The structure of the array is more complicated than the 10-directional life-ending pagoda. I might need some time. After inheriting the array spirit constitution, Shangguan Xinyao's understanding of array formations had improved by leaps and bounds. Although she wasn't at Zhen Dejuan's level yet, she didn't need help anymore. She could decipher the complicated array formations on her own. Decipher it. I will protect you, Jun Changshao said. Yes. Shangguan Xinyao communicated with the formless array formation and started to infiltrate and deduce. Yi Xingqian sat on a huge rock at the side. He circulated the spirit vein constitution and absorbed the heaven and earth attributes that existed in this place. After a while, he opened his eyes and looked at the area where the wind and sand were howling. He saw a black figure gradually appear. He frowned and muttered, "This person looks a little familiar." Chapter 803. After receiving the mental cultivation technique from Seoul, Dai Lu had absorbed a lot of energy on his way to the northern desert state. His cultivation level had increased significantly, which filled him with hope for the future. Especially when he thought of the 2 battles where he was crushed by Yi Xingqian, he was furious. He wished he could turn around and go to the Sect of all times and stomp on that guy. A little impatience spoils great plans. Seoul comforted him. When you inherit the Devourer bloodline and have a stronger cultivation, no one will be able to bully you anymore. Calm down, calm down. Dai Lv suppressed his anger and finally came to the land of yellow sand. What he didn't expect was that as soon as he arrived at this area, he would see the guy he hated to the bone on a huge rock in the distance. It's him. Yi Xingqian. How could we meet here? Enemies are bound to meet on a narrow road. Phew. In an instant, the anger that Dai Lu had suppressed erupted like a volcano. Especially when he thought of the 2 times he was tortured by that guy, his eyes burned with anger. This guy looks familiar, Yi Xingqian mumbled. Dai Lu almost vomited blood when he heard that. He had fought with this guy twice, but he did not recognize him. Or did he not see him as a human at all? Brother Green Scarf, it's not that Night Emperor doesn't see you as a human, but he sees you as trash. He doesn't care about trash. Jun Changshao looked over and rubbed his chin. He does look familiar. Pfft. Dai Lu could not help but vomit blood. You stepped on my face in the first round, and you didn't even recognize me. Ta! Dai Lu walked over and stood 10 feet away from them. He took off his black robe and put on his iconic green scarf. Do you know me now? Jun Changshao remembered and slapped his head. So it's you, the lecher who teased my eldest disciple. Dai Lu roared, I'm not flirting. On the way to the recruitment of numerous sects, although he was amazed by the beauty of Lu Qianqian, he just took the initiative to chat. Even if he had any ideas, it was just an attempt, and the result was that he was abused. If I remember correctly, you should have joined the Sacred Spring Sect. Why are you here in the northern desert state? Jun Changshao asked. Dai Lu proudly said, that kind of trash sect is not qualified to accommodate me. Ever since Brother Greenscarf gained the power of Devour, he was no longer an ant. He was ambitious now, and he was floating in the air. Since we're old acquaintances, hurry up and leave this place. Don't disturb me when I'm doing my business, Jun Changshao said. Although he had some unpleasantness with Dai Lu, it was only when he had just transmigrated. Now that he had become a peak emperor stage, his outlook and vision were even wider. Naturally, he would not argue with ordinary martial artists. Dai Lu could tell from his words that he was looking down on him, so he angrily said, Jun Changshao, I'm no longer the ant that you trampled under your feet back then. Jun Changshao smiled and said, what do you mean by that? Shua. Dai Lu stretched out his hand and pointed over. He proudly said, I want to fight with you. Although he hated Yi Xingqian, he hated Jun Changshao a lot. Now that the 2 of them had met, he definitely had to find the patriarch of the Sect of all times to settle old scores. Brother Greenscarf was really arrogant. He actually dared to take the initiative to challenge Go Sheng, who had all kinds of cheats on him. Kid. The soul collapsed and said, with your current strength, you are not his opponent. Don't act rashly. I don't care, I won't listen. I'm going to fight with this guy today to wash away the shame of being trampled on in the past and take revenge for the destruction of the Spirit Spring Sect. Under normal circumstances, those who opposed the protagonist would often be labeled as villains. Although Greenscarf Brother was also a villain, he had a lot of feelings for the Spirit Spring Sect and still insisted on taking revenge today. Therefore, even villains had their own shining points. You can hate him, you can dislike him, but the mentality of overreaching oneself for revenge for the sake of the sect must be affirmed. After all, in a world where monkeys scatter when the tree falls, such people were too rare. Fight with this seat. Jun Changshao was stunned and said, "Are you serious?" From his eyes and tone, Dai Lu could tell that he was looking down on and despising him, so he angrily said, "Do you dare to fight?" Peng, a heavy punch landed on his face, and his whole body flew up into the air and exploded dozens of steps away. Yi Xingqian coldly said, "What qualifications does trash have to challenge the patriarch?" Dai Lu covered his sunken right face and stood up, angrily saying, "What kind of hero are you to sneak attack people when they are unprepared?" Although he said so, he was shocked in his heart. From the moment that guy approached to the moment he attacked, his spiritual sense did not catch him. It must be because I was too focused on Jun Changshao and forgot about him. Kid. Han solemnly said, "There is something I have to tell you. With your current strength, don't talk about Jun Changshao, you can't even beat this Yi Xingqian." From the power he just endured, he roughly estimated the strength of the Night Emperor. Although Dai Lu cultivated the Devouring Heart Sutra, and improved significantly in a short period of time, but if he really fought, he would still be abused. Impossible. Dai Lu roared in his heart, "Didn't you say that if I meet this guy again, I can easily trample him under my feet?" "I did say that," Han said helplessly. "But Yi Xingqian's growth is too fast. It is completely beyond the speed of a normal martial artist on the Starfall continent. Trash." Yi Xingqian pointed to the distance and said impatiently, "Just disappear." Damn it. Dai Lu's eyes were even more furious. Han comforted him, "Where there is life, there is hope. Just leave. Leave." Dai Lu suddenly laughed crazily. Then, he wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and stared at Yi Xingqian, saying, "Listen up, I am not trash." Whoosh. He rushed over angrily and gathered spiritual energy in his right fist. Bang! However, before he could attack, Yi Xingqian had already approached him and punched him in the chest. The explosive power exploded on his skin, causing him great pain. Boom, plop. Dai Lu fell dozens of meters away. His chest had caved in from the attack. Ta! Yi Xingqian walked up to him and said like a god, "You don't even dare to admit that you are trash. You are complete trash." Crack. Dai Lu endured the pain and clenched his fists. Huff huff, suddenly, his eyes started to turn green. His palms also gradually turned green. The green attribute in his body crazily poured out like a flood. "I can't beat this guy. But we are so close that I can devour him." Whoosh. Yi Xingqian suddenly crouched down and grabbed his leg. Then, he started to attack him left and right as if he was torturing Ao Wushuang. Bang! 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 After a series of attacks, Dai Lu's mind was seriously damaged. The eager devouring power in his body shrank back into his dantian, perhaps because of its master or because Yi Xingqian was too overbearing. "Xingqian," Jun Changshao said, "don't disturb your junior sister." Understood. Yi Xingqian stopped and dragged the unconscious Dai Lu out of the area. Then, he waved his hand and threw him far away. "Trash. You should go back to the trash heap." Plop. Dai Lu, who was thrown away, landed heavily on the yellow sand. On this day, he met Yi Xingqian for the third time, and it ended with him torturing him thousands of times. Sigh. Soul sighed helplessly. How did I end up in this idiot's body? Chapter 804. The third encounter between Dai Lu and Yixingqian ended with Dai Lu fainting once again. Even if Yixingqian cultivated the Devouring Heart Sutra and improved his cultivation level in a short time, he was destined to be defeated because he had only used half a move this time. To be exact. Judging from the second encounter, Yixingqian had not improved at all. It was not that Dai Lu was not strong, but Yixingqian improved faster than him. Moreover, Yixingqian had a spiritual pulse and was eating qi-gathering pills and absorbing spirit stones. Brother Green Scarf wanted to avenge his humiliation and trample Yixingqian under his feet, but it was definitely a path that seemed to have no end. Han was puzzled. The spiritual qi in the falling star continent has obviously declined. Why is there such a strong sect and such a strong young generation? If we let them grow, even if we nurture him and take control of him, we may not be able to gain the upper hand. No. Han said firmly, we have to return to the soul world as soon as possible and recover our damaged souls. Then we can take control of this guy's body and absorb more people's energy. Only then can we kill him before he grows. He had instigated Dai Lu to come to the northern desert state not to let him inherit the Devouring Heart Sutra, but to take the opportunity to return to his own world to recuperate and then make a comeback. Everything was going according to Han's plan. However, there was something wrong with this stupid human's brain. He could not defeat Yixingqian, but he still wanted to be tortured. Han said helplessly, humans are unreliable. We have to do it ourselves. Phew. Just then, Dai Lu woke up. He crawled out of the sand and lay flat on the ground. He had already broken through to the martial king level and had a stronger mental cultivation method. Why was he still unable to defeat Yixingqian? He was still being tortured like a dog. Kid. Han comforted him. A temporary failure is not a failure. Only when you learn to grow from setbacks can you become a winner in life. That's right. Dai Lu clenched his fists and said, I have to be able to withstand failure and setbacks. Patriarch. In the land of yellow sand, Shangguan Xinyao, who had been studying for 4 hours, opened her eyes and said, Disciple has already mastered the formation set up by Senior Array Emperor. Can you find the passage? Jun Changshao asked. Shangguan Xinyao's heart stirred. The space trembled slightly, and a boundary wall materialized. She said, Patriarch, you can enter the formation now. Shua. Jun Changshao stepped forward and blended in. Yixingqian and Shangguan Xinyao followed closely behind. After the three of them entered, the materialized enchantment disappeared. Inside the formation, there was a space that was flickering with flowing light. There was a small crack in the center that was being suppressed by complicated formations and lines. It looked like some kind of ancient seal. Patriarch. Shangguan Xinyao said, this spatial crack should be the passage that Senior Array Emperor mentioned. Standing to the side, Jun Changshao rubbed his chin and said, if the soul race can come to the Starfall continent from here, we can also enter their realm from here. That's right. The system said, this is a two-way space passage. It should have been opened by void worms. Void worms? Jun Changshao asked. The system explained, void worms are a special species that lives in the universe. They can open up deep layers of space and create a passage for other life forms to freely travel through. Is it really that amazing? Jun Changshao asked. The system said, according to the records of the Starfall continent, higher-level void worms can open up passages between the lower and upper realms. Damn. Jun Changshao was surprised. That's a bit amazing. Of course. The system said, using void worms to open up a passage between the lower and upper realms will allow one to enter, but it will be considered illegal. Only by using one's own strength will one be considered to have ascended legally. Oh. Jun Changshao rubbed his chin and said, seems like the soul race's appearance in the Starfall continent was due to the passage opened up by void worms. Do you even need to guess? The system was speechless. Xinyao. Jun Changshao said, can the seal above be broken? Shangguan Xinyao said, Patriarch, the seal can be broken, but after it is broken, the soul race on the other side will take the opportunity to kill their way over. That's true. Jun Changshao dismissed the idea of breaking the seal. After all, the main purpose of coming to the northern desert state this time was to confirm if there was a passage. Now that it had been found, the mission was successfully completed. Buzz! Buzz! Suddenly, the cracks that were suppressed by countless lines and formations trembled slightly. Patriarch! Shangguan Xinyao said, there's a force trying to break the seal inside. The passage connected to another world. It was obvious that it was the soul race's doing. The Array Emperor was right. Jun Changshao said, the soul race's desire to destroy the Starfall continent will not die. Shangguan Xinyao frowned and said, Patriarch, although the seal can still be suppressed, I'm afraid it won't last long before it is broken. Jun Changshao said, can it be strengthened? Shangguan Xinyao thought for a while and said, it shouldn't be a problem. Strengthen. Yes. It would be difficult for Shangguan Xinyao to set up a sealing formation by herself, but the Array Emperor had left behind a sample, which could be used for reference and comprehension. Whoosh! Whoosh! A few hours later, a series of sealing formations with the same principle appeared on the cracks out of thin air, and were reinforced again. The internal collision force was obviously weaker than before, and could even be completely ignored. Patriarch. Shangguan Xinyao deduced, after strengthening, I don't dare to say too much, but it can last for at least 500 to 600 years. The Array Emperor's spirit in heaven would be very happy. The girl who inherited his constitution was more reliable. In truth, the ancient sealing array formation was gradually showing signs of collapse. It wouldn't be long before the races from the other side of the world rushed in. Now that it was stabilized, it was equivalent to temporarily eliminating the danger, and they could live for a few hundred years in relative peace. This isolation array formation is a bit old. You should improve it a bit more to prevent others from accidentally breaking in, Jun Changshao instructed. Okay. Shangguan Xinyao continued to comprehend. After about half a day, she had improved the formation left behind by the Array Emperor. Its concealment and defense were stronger. Let's go. After everything was done, Jun Changshao said, let's go back to the sect. Therefore, the three of them left the desert and the northern desert state. After they left, Dai Lu sneaked to the area where the formation was set up. After confirming that Jun Changshao and Yixingqian were not around, he heaved a sigh of relief. I have sensed the aura of the formation. As long as you break it, you can obtain the Devourer bloodline. By then, you can easily beat up a martial emperor, Sol said. Dai Lu's eyes lit up. At this moment, he did not expect to beat up a martial emperor. He only hoped to trample Yixingqian and the sect of all times under his feet. Whoosh! Whoosh! A special aura gushed out from Dai Lu's body and turned into a huge net. It shrouded the formation and started to penetrate it. No! Suddenly, Sol said in shock, the formation here has been tampered with. I can't penetrate it. Damn it! Sol said angrily, it must be Jun Changxiao's doing. Dai Lu broke down. You mean, if you can't penetrate the formation, I can't inherit the Devourer bloodline? That's right. Ah! Dai Lu stood in the desert and roared in anger. The formation and seal that had existed in the northern desert state for a long time had been strengthened. No one could penetrate it, and the foreign tribes could not attack from the other side. In other words, Jun Changshao had once again saved the world without knowing why. Of course. He did not know. He was still thinking on the way back. When he and the sect became stronger, he would take the initiative to invade the Soul Tribe's territory and take over their resources. No, he would take it as his responsibility to save the world. Array Emperor. The corner of Jun Changxiao's mouth rose into a smile. The spatial passage you sealed is the greatest benefit. The soul race was in a state of panic. Chapter 805. Dai Lu dragged his weak body as he walked under the sandstorm. His back seemed extremely desolate and dejected. "Kid, don't be discouraged." Soul cheered up and comforted him. Even without the Devourer bloodline, there is still the Devouring Heart Sutra. As long as you comprehend it to a higher level, you can still be invincible. Returning to his own world was the fastest way for him to recover and become stronger. He didn't expect that the array set up by the Array Emperor would be modified and become completely unfamiliar. He could only continue with his original plan and focus on nurturing this human. Although he was a little idiotic and reckless. But when he became stronger, he would be able to devour souls and completely control his body. He would then be able to do whatever he wanted. Dai Lu didn't know that he was just a chess piece in front of Soul. Instead, he was deeply touched that someone would come to comfort him when he was injured. Phew. He exhaled and clenched his fists. "I will work hard to cultivate and become stronger. Until one day, I will make Yi Xingqian and Jun Changshao kneel at my feet." A good man with ambition. So. Soul urged, don't always look for beasts, flowers, and trees to absorb energy. You can directly absorb the energy of martial artists to improve faster. On the way to the northern desert state, he had suggested this. But after Dai Lu gradually mastered the devouring power, he would only start from beasts and plants. He would not absorb martial artists at all. To be exact. Ever since he had the devouring power, most of his improvement came from absorbing beasts. Unless he encountered martial artists who were looking for trouble, he rarely took the initiative to attack. I have no grudges with others. Isn't it a little inappropriate to absorb their energy? Dai Lu said. Kid. Soul said, in this world, it's either you die or he dies. Having a benevolent heart will only push yourself into the abyss. Dai Lu's eyes gradually turned cold. Listen to me. Soul continued to instigate, only by absorbing martial artists can you become stronger faster, take revenge, and become the master of this world. Obviously, he was stronger than the system in terms of bluffing. Alright. Dai Lu said, let me try. On the official road to Yellow Sand City, he saw an old man striding forward. His eyes lit up, it's him. The person Dai Lu saw was old Monster Su, the Grand Elder of the Wind-Riding Sect. He had just come out of seclusion and was preparing to go to the city to handle some matters. Ah! Senior, I was wrong. I was wrong. Boom. 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 When night fell, Dai Lv squatted in the damp cave with a bloody nose and a swollen face, like a pitiful kitten licking its wounds alone. His soul roared in exasperation, why did you have to find a martial emperor? Sect of all times. Jun Changshao sat in the main hall. Was calm. And therefore, he decided to put the matter to rest for the time being. The most important thing now was to think about how to complete the epic quest. Although Shi Qi has reached the minimum standard, he must exceed it by the settlement period in a year, Jun Changshao murmured. And the god of cookery competition. It's only 2 or 3 months from now. How's Duda's preparation going? Jun Changshao got up and went to the cafeteria. As soon as he walked in, he saw Li Tiantian, Sima Zhongda, and the others squatting down and crying. Their tears wet the ground. What's going on? Could it be that Li Fei used body of depression to make them fall into a pessimistic state? That's not right. That kid is cultivating in the Tower of Experience. He doesn't have time. Patriarch. Li Tiantian wiped his tears and snot and cried, Senior Sister Lu's fried rice is simply too delicious. Jun Changshao saw a bowl of fried rice on the table in front of him. It looked no different from the fried rice he used to eat, so he rolled his eyes and said, "It's not like I haven't eaten it before." "Look at you too." "No. No." Li Tian cried. "This fried rice is different from before. After eating it. Woo-woo. Let me cry for a while more, newly developed." Jun Changshao walked to the table, picked up the spoon and said, "I'll try it." Hall Master Li. Outside the cafeteria, Lu Wanshi smiled and said, "I just developed a new type of fried rice today. It's delicious." Li Luoqiu smiled and said, "The more you say that, the more curious I am." "You can only smell it, not eat it." "Why?" "Because," the little girl suddenly said with a straight face, "I added a special seasoning to the fried rice. After eating it, you can't control your emotions and cry." Li Luoqiu said in surprise, "So magical." The two of them walked into the cafeteria as they talked. However, just as they stood there, they were stunned. Because there were 3 people squatting inside, covering their faces and crying. "Girl, girl." Jun Changshao wiped the tears from his eyes as he cried, "Did you put tear gas in your fried rice?" "Ah." Lu Wanshi said with her mouth open, "You guys ate fried rice?" Jun Changshao and Li Tian cried for a full hour. Only when their eyes were swollen did they recover. Lu Wanshi was like a child who had made a mistake. She leaned against the corner of the wall and lowered her head. Her small hands rubbed the corner of her clothes as she whispered, "Patriarch, I'm sorry. I didn't expect you to eat this bowl of fried rice. Not bad, not bad." Jun Changshao sat down and wiped the tears from the corner of his eyes. The newly developed fried rice tastes much better than before. If you take it to the God of Cookery competition, you'll definitely make the judges cry. "Patriarch, this is just something I casually researched. There are better dishes in the God of Cookery competition," Lu Wanshi said. "There's something better." Jun Changshao said, "If that's the case, winning the God of Cookery competition will be a piece of cake." "Patriarch." Lu Wanshi frowned and said, "I'm afraid you don't know that the current God of Cookery has sent his favorite disciple to compete." "Oh." Jun Changshao turned to look at Li Luoqiu. The latter said, 50 years ago, a man named Shi Weitian won the God of Cookery competition 5 times in a row and was known as the current God of Cookery." "Awesome." Winning the God of Cookery competition 5 times in a row was definitely not luck, but true skill in cooking. Li Luoqiu continued, "In his later years, Shi Weitian accepted a disciple named Song Bao as his last disciple, and after a few years of training, he announced to the public that he had inherited 90% of his legacy. The God of Cookery competition is about to begin. Many people have already determined that the disciple of the God of Cookery will win this year's God of Cookery competition. Perhaps, like the former, he will win the subsequent competitions and become the new God of Cookery." Jun Changshao said, "In that case, this Song Bao will be the biggest threat on Dudu's path to the championship." Li Luoqiu said, "Many of the old seniors who have won the God of Cookery competition know that Shi Weitian will send his disciple to compete. This year's God of Cookery competition can be said to be full of masters and stars." The corner of Jun Changshao's mouth twitched. Shi Ba's mission was to let Lu Wanshi get into the top 3 of the God of Cookery competition. He thought it would be easy, but now it seemed that an epic mission was destined to be difficult. There is only challenge when there is difficulty. Jun Changshao said, "I believe that you will be able to defeat all the masters and pick up the trophy of the God of Cookery competition." "Yes." Lu Wanshi nodded heavily and said, "I will not disappoint the Patriarch's high hopes. Good luck." "Good luck." After giving his disciple encouragement, Jun Changshao went to the medicine hall. Lu Wanshi, who was about to continue studying Chinese recipes, walked into the kitchen and said in surprise, "Where is that bowl of fried rice?" "Boo-hoo!" At the back of the mountain, the Purple King squatted on the ground, tears flowing like a fountain, and there was an empty bowl at his feet. Not even a grain of rice was left. Jun Chang took a small bite with a smile on his face and wept for an hour. This guy ate it all. Chapter 806. The Purple King, who had eaten half a bowl of fried rice, cried for an entire day. Especially in the dead of the night, when he thought about how he had died before he could succeed, he immediately burst into tears. However, if he was given another chance, he would still choose to eat that bowl of fried rice, because if he ate it, he would cry, and if he didn't, he would regret it. The Purple King's strength had been recovering bit by bit during his time in the Sect of all times, but his stomach had been completely tied up by delicacies. Now, he couldn't even chase him away. One day, Jun Changshao sat beside the Purple King, holding his chin with a smile, and said, "Is it delicious?" "Delicious. If it's delicious, then eat more." The Purple King ate all the food, then drank a large bowl of soup, and said, again, "Wait a minute." This guy's eyes and smile were very strange. The Purple King became vigilant. "If you have something to say, say it." Zirua. Jun Changshao stood up and patted his shoulder. "You've been in the sect for a while now. Although you've been opening the door every day, your contribution is still a little less. You need to work harder in the future." "How?" the Purple King said. Jun Changshao sat down, his fingers tapping on the dining table, and said, "Gather all your subordinates, and then place them in the Iron Bone Mountain. I will take care of their food and accommodation." The Purple King's expression became ugly. The thing he was most worried about had inevitably happened. Jun Changshao said seriously, "Many warriors make a living by hunting fierce beasts. If you place your kind in the Iron Bone Mountain, at least you can ensure that they will grow up without worries in the future. This king of the beast race must be used well, and then equip the sect with stronger fierce beasts, so as to develop the Tiger Rider Hall, Leopard Rider Hall, and other halls. Powerful spirit beasts could also be used as strong fighters." Even in Jun Changshao's bold thoughts, if one day they really invaded the soul race world, they could also form an army of fierce beasts. The Purple King's expression became more and more ferocious. Obviously, he was having a fierce battle in his heart. He had already been forced to become a disciple of the Sect of all times. Did he want his people to suffer the shame with him? Jun Changshao placed a beginner beast pill on the table and said, "This is a pill used to satisfy your hunger, you can try it first." Hunger. Looking at the pill, the Purple King's eyes were filled with doubt. Using something that isn't even comparable to candy to fill your stomach? Are you insulting the stomachs of the beasts? Shwa. He stretched out his hand, took it, and swallowed it. Shwa. The purple craggy monster monarch stood up, his eyes filled with disbelief. Although he had just eaten, he was only half full. But when the effects of the pill took effect in his body, he no longer felt hungry. In fact, he felt full. "You're eating a beast pill," Jun Changshao said. "One pill and you don't need to eat for 10 days. 10 days? The Purple King's eyes widened. 10 days was not long, but for a fierce beast, the calories it needed to absorb were huge. If it had this kind of pill, it could absorb the spiritual energy of heaven and earth without having to eat frequently. Although the fierce beasts of the falling star continent did not need to cultivate various mental techniques, absorbing the attributes of heaven and earth to make themselves stronger was the most basic. "I have a lot of beast pills," Jun Changshao said. "It's enough for your people to live in Mount Iron Bone with peace of mind." The Purple King was silent. To be exact, it was already tempted. Beasts could absorb the attributes of heaven and earth without restraint to improve, but the amount of food they needed would be a lot, which was often one of the important factors that delayed their growth. If it had a beast pill that could last for 10 days, it could use all the time to absorb the attributes, and its strength would definitely increase significantly. "Have you thought about it?" Jun Changshao asked. After a difficult choice, the Purple King said, I'll summon them. It was a compromise. Because of the beast pills, because warriors hunted fierce beasts for a living. If it could gather its people together, it might not be a bad thing to have someone to provide food and shelter for them. Jun Changshao said, it's best to sneak them over in batches when it's quiet at night. Previously, when the beast horde attacked the sect of all times, the whole world knew about it, and he did not want to do that again. Of course. The Purple King also muttered in its heart. If it gathered its underlings, would they complain? Although it was a king and could make them listen to it unconditionally, it should at least be able to convince them. Forget it. The Purple King said, contact them first. Whoosh whoosh. As it spoke, its body suddenly emitted a murderous aura, then it turned into a stream of light and flew toward Death Valley. Elder Nyo. In the valley, a half-human spirit beast frowned. King has been trapped in the sect of all times for a long time. When are we going to launch a second rescue? Don't worry, don't worry. The Purple King's right-hand man said, wait for King's instructions before making any plans. Alright. The half-human spirit beast and the other spirit beasts could only wait anxiously. At this time, the number of fierce beasts in Death Valley had already reached more than 500,000, of all levels. There were all kinds of species, and it had already formed a relatively large scale. Because they had been lurking and did not make any big moves. Therefore, the relevant departments of the Zhongzuan state did not realize that there would be so many fierce beasts gathering illegally in southwest Yangzhou. Of course. With so many fierce beasts, if they attacked the sect of all times again to save their king, then they would definitely be sending themselves to their deaths. Whoosh! At this moment, a stream of light flew over and instantly merged into Elder Nyo's sea of consciousness, causing him to say happily, King has sent a message, asking us to sneak to Iron Bone Mountain in batches. It seems that King has recovered his strength and intends to let us work together to break through the sect of all times in one fell swoop. Go, go. Elder Nyo said, let's hurry over. Shwa. 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 Dozens of spirit beasts that were comparable to emperor-level spirit beasts flew out of Death Valley. When they arrived at the foot of Iron Bone Mountain, they immediately saw the purple-haired man in red underwear standing in the life and death arena. King! Elder Nyo and the others shouted excitedly. The Purple King said, follow me to the mountain. Yes. Dozens of spirit beasts flew over and landed in the depths of Iron Bone Mountain. Elder Nyo hurriedly said, King, what's the plan? The Purple King looked around and said, how's the environment here? Not bad. Elder Nyo said, it should be the place where the spirit aura has recovered. There was an isolation array set up in the mountain, but Jun Changshao had already opened it in advance, allowing them to enter. Since it's not bad. The Purple King said, let's stay here. Yes. Elder Nyo and the other beasts shouted in unison. But in the next second, their expressions were dull as they said, stay. Stay here. The Purple King said, this king has already negotiated with the patriarch of the sect of all times to temporarily pretend to be a disciple of his sect. Then, when the time is ripe, we will work together to do something big. All the beasts were dumbfounded. At that moment, although the king had his back to them, he gave them a very unfamiliar feeling. King, Elder Nyo said with tears in his eyes, you seem to have changed. This is the territory of humans. How can we live here and be in cahoots with them? King. Are you kidding me? As the spirit beasts spoke, they could not control their emotions and shed tears. The king was their faith, their spiritual pillar that would never be slaves. Now, he was letting them live in the territory of humans and join hands with them. This was simply, how's the beast core? Oh my god, it's simply too magical. King, we support you. Use humans to complete your great cause. I'll go inform my clansmen now and let them enter Iron Bone Mountain as soon as possible. Chapter 807. During the time he lived in the Sect of all times, the Purple King had really changed. What changed him was not only food, but also all kinds of special training methods. As a beast, he naturally did not need to cultivate martial arts, but the existence of the molding room could temper his body. The first level of the Tower of Experience was also very effective. What the Purple King did every day was to open the door early in the morning, have breakfast, go to the molding room to train for the whole morning, go to the Tower of Experience after lunch, go to the Spirit Gathering Array to absorb spirit energy after dinner, and then go back to his room to sleep. Although this kind of life was boring, it also made him gradually feel that the strength of his body was changing bit by bit. Even if he recovered his strength before being sealed, his strength would definitely increase greatly. Food and shelter were provided, and he could even improve. How could the Purple King's mentality not change? Moreover, during this period of contact, the things that Jun Changshao had done had also amazed him as a beast. He had monopolized the mineral veins in the valley, challenged 2 third-rate evil sects at the peak of Mount Hua, and cleared the Shifang suicide tower that had existed for 10,000 years. All these things made the Purple King realize that this young man was definitely not willing to be ordinary. In the future, he would definitely be a capable and dared to do great things. Since he had mentioned the human-demon combination earlier, he could completely consider joining forces with him and use the resources of the Sect of all times to increase the overall strength of the beast race. Therefore, the Purple King had compromised to become a disciple of the Sect of all times. In fact, he was enduring silently. If anyone said that he would never be a slave as a beast, unless food and shelter were provided, he would definitely be angry with them. As for Elder Nyo and the other spirit beasts, after eating the beast cores, they also brainlessly supported their king. In just a few days, the hundreds of thousands of beasts in Death Valley were all moved to Mount Iron Bone. In order to show his sincerity, Jun Changshao improved the isolation array and expanded the range so that they could all enjoy the recovery of spirit energy. There were pills that did not need to eat for 10 days, and heaven and earth attributes that were many times stronger than the outside world. At that moment, all the beasts that came in treated Mount Iron Bone as their home. Of course. How boring would it be to just eat beast pills? Jun Changshao found some time and called over all the humanoid spirit beasts whose strength was comparable to Martial King and Wu Huang. He ordered Lu Wancher to start cooking. Oh my god. I didn't expect that the human bastards would taste better than meat. Give me another, 10 bowls. Wah wah wah, it's so delicious, so fragrant. The group of spirit beasts that ate meat all day felt that their lives had reached the peak after eating Lu Wancher's fried rice. Jun Changshao would not let them eat and drink for free. After successfully grasping their appetite, he began to calculate. Lion, tiger, leopard, wolf, there were all kinds of ferocious beasts, and there were a lot of them. In the beginning, Jun Changshao had considered equipping the Wolf Rider Hall with a decent level of wolf beasts. After some consideration, he decided to establish a hall that focused on dire beasts. Although the 500,000 dire beasts had already settled in Mount Iron Bone, their spiritual leader was still the Purple King. Therefore, it was undoubtedly the best choice for this guy to be the Hall Master. Disciple or Hall Master, you choose. Hall Master. The Purple King's brain was still normal. He knew that the Hall Master's level was much higher than the disciples. Jun Changshao said seriously, since you are the Hall Master of the Sect of all times, you have to bear the burden of being the Hall Master. No problem, the Purple King said. It's decided then. Jun Changshao said, I will announce it tomorrow. The next day, the Spirit Beast Hall was listed. The Hall Master was the Purple King, the Vice Hall Master was Elder Nyo, and the other Spirit Beasts were the first batch of members. The number of members in the Sect of all times increased again. Although they were not humans, they were still counted as a spot and were still given contribution points. Jun Changshao could see that both humans and beasts could join the Sect of all times and become his disciples. That's right. I want to establish the strongest sect. How can the disciples I recruit be limited to humans? There were martial cultivators and demonic cultivators. There were humans and beasts as well. My sect of all times is an all-inclusive sect. It is a pure land of bliss in this world. Elder Nyo and the others were quite strong. There were more than 10 emperors and 50 emperors. This was definitely a strong force. If we include them, as long as we recruit disciples up to the standard, won't we be able to become a third-rate sect? Jun Changxiao's eyes lit up. The system poured cold water on him. They are still beasts. Although they have the strength of humans, they don't have the aura of realms. The certification hall will definitely not recognize them. Jun Changxiao was silent. Patriarch. Lu Wanshe pointed at the plaque that was just hung up and blinked. If the word beast falls or fades, won't it become a mourning hall? This little girl's thoughts were strange, and her angle was tricky. The Spirit Beast Hall was established. The Purple King became the hall master. He Wudi was fully in charge of opening the doors. Therefore, he was now holding two positions. He was the true disciple of the sect of all times, opening and closing. Comfortable. The next day, the Purple King sat on the big chair at the entrance of the hall. His face had a hint of complacency. Hall Master Z. After a while, Shui Rengue walked in and said with a smile, "We have something to discuss." "Speak." The Purple King said proudly. "Ha!" He had just been promoted to Hall Master and was already putting on airs. Shui Rengue smiled and said, "My Wolf Rider Hall lacks more than 3,000 wolf beasts. Can you give some to us?" "No." The Purple King rejected immediately. "Beasts will never be slaves and will never be ridden." Hall Master Z. Shui Rengue said seriously, "You and I are both hall masters of the sect of all times. Everything has to be done for the benefit of the sect. Moreover, the wolf beasts were sent here in the hope that they could become stronger. Also, to put it in a small way, you are. To put it in a big way, you are." Half an hour later, Shui Rengue went back happily. The Purple King gave his first order after becoming Hall Master, which was to send the best wolf beasts to the Wolf Rider Hall. A few days later, after careful consideration, Jun Changxiao announced that the Wolf Rider Hall would be renamed as the Battle Rider Hall. Shui Rengue and Tao Yuan would continue to be Hall Masters and Hall Masters. The Tiger Rider Regiment, Lion Rider Regiment, Leopard Rider Regiment, and Wolf Rider Regiment would be established. Shenyang County had Azure Dragon, White Tiger, Vermilion Bird, and Black Tortoise. The sect of all times had Lion, Tiger, Leopard, and Wolf Rider Regiment. From this change and the establishment of the 4 regiments, it was clear that Jun Changxiao wanted to use the beasts to build a hall that could fight on the battlefield. Hall Master Z. After the Battle Rider Hall was established, Shui Rengue came to the Spirit Beast Hall again and said with a smile, "Can you send more lion beasts, tiger beasts, and leopard beasts to my Battle Rider Hall?" "No." Hall Master Z said firmly. He could tell that Jun Changxiao made him the Hall Master of the Spirit Beast Hall so that he could send more mounts to the Battle Rider Hall. Cunning human. This king will be firm in his beliefs this time. Shui Rengue kept on asking for more. In the end, he could only call the patriarch over. Jun Changxiao came to the Spirit Beast Hall and placed the interspatial ring that contained hundreds of thousands of beast cores on the table. He said, "Are you going to give it to me?" "Here." Chapter 808. Roar. Roar. In the depths of Iron Bone Mountain, the roars of berserk beasts could be heard. Jun Changxiao, who was standing on top of a mountain peak, looked down and saw disciples riding on lions, tigers, leopards, and wolves. They were all lined up separately. "Patriarch." Shui said, the lion and tiger legions are for killing, while the leopard and wolf legions are for charging. He and Tao Yuan redefined the cavalry according to the characteristics of the berserk beasts. Lions and tigers were stronger in strength, so they were more suitable for close combat. Leopards and wolves were better in speed, so they were more focused on charging when the two armies faced each other. Of course, there were only 5,000 to 6,000 members in the war cavalry hall, so the strength of the 4 cavalry divisions was not much. In the future, whether or not we can attack cities and expand our territory depends on you and Tao Yuan, so we must build the war cavalry hall into a first-class battle group. Jun Changshao said. Yes. Shui and Tao Yuan said in unison. This kind of army of humans and beasts was a test for them, and it was also an opportunity to show the world their commanding strength. The Spirit Beast Hall was established, and the Wolf Cavalry Hall was changed to the War Cavalry Hall. Next, Jun Changshao was worried again. Hundreds of thousands of berserk beasts lived in Iron Bone Mountain. Although it was not crowded, it required a huge amount of beast cores. Just 1 pill per beast would cost 500,000 pills. If he didn't prepare them in advance, it would be difficult to maintain them for a long time. So, the system said, the host can consider the mid-level beast core formula or the high-level beast core formula. Where could he get this thing? He had to go to the mall to refresh it. Jun Changshao knew that the system was deliberately instigating him to spend. However, getting the mid-level beast core or higher was the best way to solve the problem of hundreds of thousands of berserk beasts. Come. Bathing and burning incense, he sat in the study room. He pulled open the door to the intermediate shopping center. Good for you. The system said. Jun Changshao rubbed his hands and spent 100 contribution points to refresh the mid-level mall. After the new item appeared, his face showed a crumbling expression. It was obviously something useless, so he bought a magic-modified full-function vacuum cleaner and continued to refresh. Ding! Ding! Refresh again and again, spend again and again. His contribution points began to decrease from 28,000 points until it reached around 15,000 points. Finally, he had obtained the intermediate-grade beast pill formula. He spent more than 10,000 points, but not all of them were wasted on daily necessities. At the very least, he bought a few martial skill books. Although the level was not as high as the Scarlet Heaven Raging Flame Slash, it could still be used to enrich the Sect's martial skill library. It tells us enough. It wasn't enough to rely on the protagonist's aura alone to buy what he needed in the shop. He also needed to have enough contribution points to squander. To put it bluntly, as long as one dared to spend money, they could have anything. Jun Changshao slumped in his chair, howling in his heart, what do I need this luck value for? The system said, the luck value only increases the spawn rate of resources that are useful for martial arts. The mid-level beast pill formula is not included in the luck value. It's already not bad that the host can get it. Jun Changshao was speechless. If he had known that he would spend so much money, he would have gone to the advanced shop. Perhaps he would have been able to get some good stuff. The system said, most of the goods in the advanced shopping center are related to martial arts, so they might not even have this kind of beast-type pill formula. Although Jun Changshao felt the pinch, at least he got what he wanted. Thus, he spent another 1,000 points to buy the formula, and it was automatically matched to the Spirit Beast Hall. Schwa! He clicked on the mid-level beast pill. Item, mid-level beast pill. Effect, after a beast takes it, it can quickly replenish its energy. It won't feel hungry for 50 days. It can also increase the beast's speed of absorbing spiritual energy. Requirements: 312131 gene of beast meat, 423282 stalks of hunger grass. Jun Changshao said happily, I only need 2 gene of meat and 2 stalks of hunger grass to refine a stronger pill. It can also increase the beast's speed of absorbing spiritual energy. It's much better than a low-level beast pill. The system said, the host can solve the problem of food for hundreds of thousands of beasts, and can even sell it for a higher price. The contribution points are not a loss at all. Ha ha ha. Jun Changshao laughed, the depression in his heart was swept away. The mid-level beast pills effect was stronger. There weren't many materials, and it didn't take much time to refine. Dozens of pills could be refined every second. As long as there were enough materials, refining 1,000,000 pills in one night was not a difficult matter. Hall Master Li Jun Changshao said, order the procurement hall to collect meat and hunger grass from all the major cities. The more the better. Okay. Li Luoqiu said. Jun Changshao also ordered his disciples to bring back the meat if they received a mission to hunt vicious beasts, even if they didn't want the skin and bones, they had to bring back the meat. Patriarch Li Qingyang said, there are so many vicious beasts in the mountains. There aren't many earth-rank vicious beasts left in Qingyang County. Meat isn't easy to find. True. Jun Changshao held his chin and whispered, if I cut off 2 gene of meat from them, it should be able to grow back quickly, right? Damn. The system said, the host is good at controlling the fork bugs. What? The Purple King stood up and said with wide eyes, you want to cut off meat from my tribe? Not much, just 2 gene. Jun Changshao said. The Purple King's mouth twitched. Although cutting off 2 gene of meat wouldn't kill them, it would definitely hurt. Jun Changshao said seriously, I cut off their meat for their own good. What do you mean? The Purple King asked. Jun Changshao said, meat will age easily after a long time. After cutting it off and growing new meat, it will be rejuvenated. That's why it's also known as the meat cutting enhancement therapy. Who are you trying to fool? The Purple King wasn't human, but he had come into contact with it before. He had never heard of the meat cutting enhancement therapy. You don't believe me? Jun Changshao said, you can call Elder Niu over and let it cut off 2 gene of meat. After it grows back, it will consume a beast pill and see if there are any changes. Seeing how serious he was, the Purple Craggy Monster King felt apprehensive, so he called his right-hand men over. Ah! Elder Niu was stunned, cut off meat. Don't talk nonsense. Hurry up. Okay. Elder Niu walked out of the spirit beast hall and transformed into his physical body. Huff huff, an ox beast as big as a mountain appeared. It was covered in hair and exuded a heavy aura. This was the mountain-moving spirit ox. Although it wasn't a special breed, it was very strong. Especially, its meat was fresh and tender, very suitable for cooking. Judging from this head, it's at least 10,000 gene of meat. Cutting off 2 gene is definitely the tip of the iceberg. Jun Changshao walked over and summoned the green dragon crescent blade. Swoosh! Swoosh! The blade flickered with an imposing aura. Jun Xiu kept the blade and picked up the peeled apple, saying, Elder Niu, my blade is very sharp. The apple won't break when it's peeled, so you just need to relax. You won't feel any pain when you cut it. Elder Niu's forehead was covered in cold sweat. Swoosh! Swoosh! The blade flickered again and slashed across his back. Because he didn't activate his defense, 2 gene of meat was cut off instantly. Li Fei took the basket and caught the meat. Sun Bukong tiptoed and sprinkled golden sore medicine on Elder Niu's wound to stop the bleeding, reduce the pain, and bandage it. Does it hurt? No. Ferocious beasts had strong bodies. Another characteristic was that they recovered quickly and had powerful spiritual energy replenishment. Therefore, in just one day, the 2 gene of meat on Elder Niu's body grew back. Come. Jun Changshao threw a mid-level beast pill to him and said, eat it and test the effect. Gulp. Elder Niu swallowed it. After the medicine took effect, he stared and said, King, my speed of absorbing heaven and earth attributes is faster than before. Of course, the Purple King wouldn't suspect that his right-hand man was deliberately lying to him, so he thought to himself, is there really such a thing as cutting off meat strengthening therapy in this world? Jun Changshao said, do you believe it now? The Purple King said, find a few more and try it. A few more spirit beasts reverted to their original forms, then cut off their meat and consumed mid-level beast pills. All of them increased the speed of absorbing spiritual energy. At that moment, the Purple King really believed that there was such a thing as cutting off meat strengthening therapy in this world. Therefore, he said straightforwardly, you can cut off the meat of my people as much as you want. If it can increase the speed, it's not a problem to cut off a few more gene. There won't be any effect if you cut off too much meat. Moreover, there will only be one effect every 50 days. You can't be too hasty. I see. Just like that, the disciples of the sect of all times would go into the mountains to cut off meat at a fixed time and use it to refine mid-level beast pills. The hundreds of thousands of ferocious beasts were completely unaware. The pills they consumed were all provided by themselves. Chapter 809. Vicious beasts were stronger than ordinary animals. Not to mention 2 caddies of meat from their bodies, even if they were cut dozens of caddies, it would still be fine. Therefore, the meat needed to refine the intermediate beast pill was solved. After all, 500,000 vicious beasts could be produced and sold on their own. Of course. Jun Changshao would not limit himself to 2 caddies. Once they experienced the benefits of the intermediate beast pill, they would increase the amount they cut, increasing it by 10 caddies or more, and then strive to sell it to the entire continent. From the looks of it, this guy tricked the Purple King's underlings into Iron Bone Mountain. Not only did he expand the scale of his mount, but he also opened a farm and regularly slaughtered them for domestic and export. The so-called meat-cutting strengthening treatment naturally did not exist. All of this stemmed from the fact that after consuming the intermediate beast pill, it would increase the speed of absorbing spirit energy. The host's scheme is too deep. The system sighed. Jun Changshao said, it doesn't hurt their lives, and it doesn't hurt much. Cutting meat from their bodies in exchange for absorbing spirit energy to increase their speed and become stronger, this isn't considered a trick, right? The system was speechless. Although Jun Patriarch had used a method, this method was indeed beneficial for the beast race to become stronger. Even if the Purple King knew the truth, he would not object to cutting meat. Instead, he would let his subordinates actively cooperate. Moreover, his back would also be straightened. Because my little brother is using his own meat to raise himself. Next. As long as the camera turned to the depths of Iron Bone Mountain, one would be able to see a large number of bandaged vicious beasts happily lining up to receive the intermediate beast pill. The Purple King stood on the mountain peak, watching his clansmen grow stronger day by day, and secretly vowed, one day, this king will lead you to do something big. The 10,000 ancient beast material store has produced a new beast pill. It is said that after consuming one does not need to eat feed for 50 days. So magical. Let's go and take a look. When Jun Changshao began to sell the excess intermediate beast materials, it immediately caused a rush to buy them in the various counties. This was definitely a profitable business. After all, the meat could be casually cut from Iron Bone Mountain, as long as there was enough grass to satisfy one's hunger. Jun Changshao had handed the matter of the beast material store to Li Luoqiu. At this moment, he was bringing Lu Wanshi to the great sovereign's imperial city to participate in the God of Cookery competition that would be held in a month's time. Yao Menjing and Purple Craggy Demon Monarch followed along. The little girl had the best relationship with Lu Wanshi. This time, she also hoped to cheer for her senior sister. As for Hall Master Z, although he said that he was here to act as a bodyguard, his real motive was to be able to eat the food cooked by that girl whenever he wanted. Z Huan. Along the way, Jun Changshao repeatedly exhorted, no matter what happens, I won't allow you to tear off your clothes. Yes. The Purple King grumbled in his heart, it's not like this king is going to fight. This king obviously won't tear off his clothes. Right. Jun Changshao said, there are countless ferocious beasts on the Starfall continent. How come you've only recruited 500,000? Moreover, his most capable assistants are only at the Martial Emperor realm. None of them are even at the Half-Saint realm. This question perplexed him for a long time. Although the Falling Star continent could not be compared to the ancient times, it still had the 9 great martial emperors. With its small number of people, if it really caused any trouble, it would be beaten 1,000 times over in a matter of minutes. The purple craggy demon said, my strength can't return to its peak. It's very difficult for me to gain the recognition of other races. The peak he was referring to was not before he was sealed, but when he was in the upper realm. In fact, when he escaped from the upper realm, the Purple King's cultivation had been suppressed very badly. Later on, when he grew up, he was only comparable to Wu Sheng's level. Among the ferocious beasts living on the Falling Star continent, there were definitely advanced spirits comparable to martial saints. Their physical bodies might not be stronger than the Purple King's, but their strength was not weak. Naturally, they would not listen to orders, let alone become enemies with the entire world. To put it bluntly, at that time, there were not many powerful spirit beasts who responded. The subordinates that the Purple King gathered were just a bunch of motley crew. Otherwise, they would not have scattered immediately after being sealed. Although the ferocious beasts were not as orderly as the humans, they also had their own forces. Who was in charge of this area and who was the boss of that area had long been divided. The Purple King, who came to the Falling Star continent, did not have strong strength. It was normal that he was not recognized. As for his death before he could succeed, it was also because the news of his conquest of the continent was leaked. While it was still in the planning stage, he was found and sealed first. How tragic, Jun Changshao said. Sigh. The Purple King sighed. Especially when he thought of the past, he could not help but cry. Jun Changshao said, if it were me, I would definitely conquer those ferocious beasts who did not agree with me before thinking about conquering the continent. You want to see us ferocious beasts kill each other? The Purple King said coldly. Jun Changshao shook his head and said, have you ever thought that the news of your invasion of the continent was leaked deliberately by those ferocious beasts who did not agree with you? The system said, they're starting to sow discord. The Purple King was silent. Jun Changshao patted him on the shoulder and said, the human heart is sinister, but so is the heart of the ferocious beasts. They were afraid that you would conquer them when you were strong in the future, so it's not impossible that they leaked the news in advance. Crack. The Purple King clenched his fist and said, everything I did was to prevent the ferocious beasts from being bullied. What they did was worse than animals. So. Jun Changshao said, only by conquering all ferocious beasts and unifying all forces can we shout the slogan, ferocious beasts will never be slaves. Otherwise, who knows if someone will stab us in the back. That's right. The Purple King said, when I regain my strength before being sealed, I will definitely take down all those ferocious beasts who did not obey me. You are the Hall Master of the Sect of All Times Morning Hall. Naturally, I will help you unify your ferocious beasts and become the true king of the ferocious beasts in the Starfall continent, Jun Changshao said. The system. This guy definitely did not have good intentions. The Purple King broke down and said, I am the Hall Master of the Spirit Beast Hall, not the Morning Hall. It doesn't matter, Jun Changshao said. With one less word, the meaning changed completely. How could it not matter? Patriarch. At this moment, Lu Wanshi pointed to the front and said, there is someone lying on the ground. Jun Changshao released his spiritual senses and found a 12 to 13-year-old boy lying in the wilderness. His breathing was slightly hurried, as if he was injured. Patriarch. Lu Wanshi guessed, Could it be that he encountered a ferocious beast in the wilderness? Let's go and take a look. As they happened to pass by, Jun Changshao led everyone over and stopped in front of the boy. Seeing his pale face and his hands covering his stomach, he said weakly, so hungry, then, he fainted. Patriarch. Lu Wancher said in surprise, he fainted from hunger. Jun Changshao was speechless. In a forest full of fruits, he could still faint from hunger. This was considered a talent. Crackle, crackle. In the cave, a bonfire was lit. The little boy opened his eyes in a daze and saw a cute face in front of him. He smiled and said, I have a bowl of fried rice here. If you are hungry, swoosh. Before he could finish, the fried rice was snatched away. Munch. Munch. The boy didn't use chopsticks and directly ate with his hands. After a while, he finished the fried rice. Then, he curled his lips and cried, I have never eaten such good fried rice in my life. The boy cried for a long time. When he calmed down, he thanked Lu Wancher, thank you for the meal, miss. Jun Changshao sat in front of the stone wall and said with his hands crossed, you are not young anymore. Climbing a tree is not difficult. How could you be so hungry that you fainted on the road? The boy scratched his head and said, because I have been lazy since I was young. Jun Changshao said, to be able to live until now with such laziness, your family must be rich. I have some land. The boy smiled foolishly. Jun Changshao said, this bowl of fried rice saved your life. 100,000 taels is not expensive, right? Patriarch, I have never eaten such delicious fried rice in my life. It is not an exaggeration to say that it is phoenix marrow and dragon liver. 100,000 taels is cheap. It is at least 1,000,000 taels. Swoosh. The boy waved his hand and put 1,000,000 taels of silver on the ground. He said seriously, please take it. Swoosh. Jun Changshao appeared in front of him and placed a hand on his shoulder, saying, I can see at a glance that this young friend's bones are extraordinary. You are definitely not an ordinary person. How about we become friends? The Purple King's mouth twitched. If it was not for Lu Wancher's pleading, you would not have helped her. Why did you suddenly become so enthusiastic when she took out 1,000,000 taels? Chapter 8:10. The young man casually took out 1,000,000 taels of silver without even blinking. This was a friend. I, Jun Changshao, am definitely going to be friends. Are you still hungry? Do you want another bowl of fried rice? Just eating fried rice is not nutritious. Zidan, go to the river and catch some carp. Let Dudu make a sweet and sour carp for him to nourish his body. Once Jun Patriarch became enthusiastic, it was really unbearable. Sweet and sour carp? The young man said in shock, this seems to be the dish made by a girl called Lu Wancher during the cooking competition in southwest Yangzhou, right? You've heard of it? Jun Changshao said in shock. Of course. The young man said, I don't have any hobbies, I just like to eat all the delicacies in the world. Alright. A person who had the same hobbies as Jin Dejuan. It was a pity that his cultivation was trash, so there was no need to rope him in. Wait a minute. If this guy was rich, he could reluctantly accept it. Cough cough. Jun Changshao moistened his throat, pointed at Lu Wancher and said, she is Lu Wancher, the sweet and sour carp was also made by her. Ah! The young man opened his eyes wide and said in disbelief, You are Lu Wancher? Yes. Lu Wancher said. Oh my God, oh my God. The young man stood up, then pinched his face and said, am I dreaming? Is it really her? Jun Changshao put his hands behind his back and introduced himself, this humble one is Jun Changshao, the patriarch of the sect of all times. The young man clearly did not care about him, but carefully sized up Lu Wancher, and said, "No wonder the fried rice was so delicious, so it was made by the champion of the cooking competition." "Little friend," Jun Changshao said, "I still don't know your identity." "Miss Lu," the young man said seriously, "if I can eat the sweet and sour carp you make, it would definitely be a blessing of 3 lifetimes." The corner of Jun Changshao's mouth twitched. A dignified sect leader was actually ignored like this. Or could it be that in the eyes of a foodie, the most important thing was the chef? "Zidan, what are you still standing there for?" Jun Changshao urged. "Hurry up and go catch some fish." "Yes." Purple Craggy left in a hurry. Normally, as the king of the beast race, it would be shameful to do such a thing. However, thinking that he would soon be able to eat the sweet and sour carp made by Lu Wancher, he was quite diligent and excited. "Young friend, my disciple still has to participate in the God of Cookery tournament. I'm afraid that cooking for you will delay his schedule," Jun Changshao said. The youth understood what he meant, so he scratched his head and said, "I don't have any money." "Out of money?" Disappointment appeared on Jun Changshao's face. However, the young man paused and said, "I have 10,000 natural spirit stones here. If Miss Lu doesn't mind, I'm willing to compensate you for the delay." I don't mind. Jun Changshao smiled. With 1,000,000 taels of silver notes and 10,000 natural spirit stones, he was indeed a friend worth befriending. But why would he go on the road alone? Was he not afraid of being robbed? Maybe his family was strict and did not allow him to go out, so he snuck out. He was used to living a life of stretching out his hand and opening his mouth, so he fainted on the road. The world of the rich was indeed incomprehensible. The system was speechless. The host did not have any good points, but he had a big imagination. The young man was really generous. He took out 10,000 natural spirit stones and did not even frown from beginning to end, as if the things did not belong to him. "The fish is here." The Purple King caught a few carps from the lake. Jun Changshao smiled and said, Do, make a sweet and sour carp for this young friend." "All right." Lu Wancher put on an apron and chose the most suitable carp. Then, she placed it on the chopping board and began to skillfully remove the scales and organs. The young man exclaimed, "I can tell from the way you move like water. Miss Lu must be a master chef." Half an hour later, the sweet and sour carp that was shaped like a U came out of the pot and was placed on the dining table that was taken out temporarily. Because it involved the recipe and cooking method, the cooking process was omitted to prevent people with ulterior motives from learning it and using it to apply for non-inheritance. "Try it," Lu Wancher said. "Okay." The young man sat down and then gently opened the package on the table. There was a plate, a spoon, and a pair of chopsticks inside. From the color, it looked like it was made of gold. "Damn!" Jun Changshao exclaimed, a rich person. He had always eaten with bamboo chopsticks, porcelain bowls, and the like. Occasionally, he would use the multi-purpose cold and hot plastic cups that were bought from the store. He had never even thought about using this kind of precious ore to make food. Lu Wancher's eyes flashed with a trace of surprise. She did not care about the expensive utensils, but the other party's slow and methodical movements. The young man placed the utensils and gently picked up the chopsticks. The entire process was methodical, and there was a serious glow in his eyes. Jun Changshao thought to himself, he's an expert in food. The young man picked up a piece of fish and put it in his mouth. He did not chew, but used the taste buds on his tongue to fully feel the food. Gradually, his brows furrowed, relaxed, and furrowed again. The expression on the young man's face kept changing, as if it was a fierce battle on the battlefield. "Brother, why don't you eat?" Jun Changshao was anxious. He wanted to rush over and snatch the food in his mouth to help him eat. After carefully tasting it, the young man began to chew. With every movement of his teeth, the juice of the meat gradually spread in his mouth. He closed his eyes, and his soul seemed to have flown out of the 9 heavens. Drip! Drip! Tears flowed out from the corner of his eyes, dripping down his cheeks and onto the table. The young man swallowed the food, then put down the chopsticks, raised his arm to wipe his tears, and choked. To be able to eat such delicious food, I have no regrets in this life. The corner of Jun Changxiao's mouth twitched. Although this guy was young, his words and actions seemed to be quite experienced. Scared. The young man put a space ring on the table and said, "How can the delicacies of the world be measured by 10,000 spirit stones? There are still 10,000 spirit stones, please be sure to take them." Jun Changxiao took it and cupped his fists. "From the way you eat, I can see that you must be a great connoisseur in the field of food." The young man said rather shamefully, "Although I am a lazy person, I am more knowledgeable in the field of food. Ordinary food can't enter my mouth. Even if you faint from hunger, you still insist on not eating something you don't like." "I can see that," Jun Changxiao said. The young man smiled and put away the cutlery. "I'm full." "You're full after one bite?" Jun Changxiao was stunned. The young man said, "I don't eat to satisfy my hunger, but to taste it carefully. Besides, I just had a bowl of fried rice." Such a weirdo, he deserved to faint from hunger. "That," the Purple King said, "can I have a bite?" Seeing that the young man was crying from eating, his stomach had already begun to churn. "Eat." Whoosh. The Purple King walked over. He was not as professional as the young man. He directly opened his mouth and took a big bite. Then, he began to cry. "What's your surname, little friend?" "My surname is Qian. Just call me Qian Boudoir." "Good name. I heard Jun Patriarch say that he's taking Miss Lu to participate in the God of Cookery competition." "That's right. I'm also going to the Great Sage's Imperial City." "Can I go with you?" "No problem, but why are you going to the Imperial City, Brother Qian?" "I'm indebted to the organizers for letting me be the judge of this year's God of Cookery competition." "Oh." Jun Changxiao suddenly stopped and said with a blank face, You're the judge of the God of Cookery competition." "This is my judge token." Qian Boudoir took out a gold-rimmed token. On it was written Chief Judge of the 49th God of Cookery competition. "Damn! He's the Chief Judge. Brother Qian, you and I hit it off at first sight. I regret that we didn't meet earlier. I can't take these banknotes and 20,000 spirit stones. Please take them quickly." You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.